Hello, hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Can anyone hear me? Hello. I've got no one to check if I'm actually making any noise at the moment, so I might be talking to myself. But just in case I'm not, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me here on our 5,000 subscribers special edition stream, which is all about anything you guys suggest to me. So I'm at your disposal tonight. Um, the message I put in chat, I put, well, what we're doing to start off with, because this was a Discord vote that I made last night of what aircraft we should start off with, and we've got this lovely Tiger Moth. I think Ants Airplanes makes this one. So I'm going to be trying to show this off a little bit to start off with tonight, but we're going to be doing all things GA, so anything general aviation that's a light aircraft, so no airliners or fast jets or anything fancy like that, just light aircraft. And any cool locations you've got that you know, that you live near in real life, anything you want me to try to visit or try to do, I'll do my best to show it off. But first of all, introductions. I suppose I should introduce myself. I'm a real-world pilot, but I'm a professional aviator, I suppose I could say. It's my full-time job to fly aeroplanes. I'm an airline pilot at the moment. I fly the Boeing 737 for a cargo airline in the UK. But for 7 years, I was a flying instructor, so I taught all sorts of different things, including instrument ratings, multi-engine ratings, the PPL, the good old private pilot's license. So everything from the basic stuff up to the more advanced stuff is what I was doing for 7 years. But I've always just been a massive aeroplane nerd and played flight sim throughout all of that. So I like to bring what I see and learn in the real world into a simulator and just try and see if it works in here too. And most of the time it does. So cool. So hopefully it'll work well tonight. Apparently we've got 8 people in chat. Ooh, hello. Write something in chat if you can hear me. So we're starting off with the Tiger Moth. I'm going to try and get this thing running. Maybe at some point someone's going to drop into Discord and tell me if I'm actually making any noise or not. I suppose I could try listening to the stream. Hi there. Well, let's see if the DA62. Yeah, okay. DA62 is on the list. Very similar to the type of airplane that I used to fly for a living, which is to the DA42, which is the little brother of the DA62, so more than happy to give that one a go. But we're starting off with Tiger Moth anyway, so we're going to have a little fly around in this thing first. Now, the hardest thing about this is getting it going, which is pretty similar to real life. I have flown one of these in real life. I've got about 7 hours in it, and I did my tail wheel rating in it about a long time ago, put it that way. But the thing is, they generally don't have starter motors fitted to them. I think some of them might have them retrofitted, but as standard, if you want to keep it original, there's no starter motor, which means you have to hand swing the propeller. So the great thing about this is you can experience that for yourself. So I've already done the pre-flight checklist. I've had a look around the aircraft. I've put the wheel chocks in, and we're going to go from here for a cold engine start. So we're going to start off with the wheel chocks. Wheel chocks are in, so that's all controlled by this little tablet thing here. So we see wheel chocks are in like that. Crew call, so this is just simulating what you would call out at various stages of the starting process. So switches off, fuel on, throttle closed. So you'd make sure the fuel is this one here, so you'd make sure the fuel cutoff is on here. The mags are on an interesting place. So the great thing about this is you can just go outside by clicking on the little view thing there. The mags are actually there. So it's really important that we make sure the mags are off to start off with, because the priming process is going to involve spinning the propeller around by hand, and you really don't want to do that with the magnetos on, because it could kick over and cause you some injuries. And there's 2 sets of mags, one set in the forward cockpit, one set in the aft cockpit here. Fuel cock, and we'll come back down here, and that's fuel cock here. So it says on, we've already got that on, so that's good. Throttle, we'll make sure that that's closed. Obviously I've got a set up on my good old honeycomb Bravo. Pilot call, so then switches off, fuel on, throttle closed. So there we go. Awesome. Someone with a nice Australian accent there. Primer press. So we're going to hit the primer. I think. Oh, okay. So this is. Have we got to go in here for it? Let's have a look. Or maybe it's not. Is this? This is where it all falls down, isn't it? Is it? Hiya, Richard. On top of the car. See, I never did this part. This is the guy who owned the plane did this part. There we go. That's it, isn't it? So 4 presses that. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Beautiful. That's the primer done. Propeller pull clockwise 4 times. So let's put the cowling down before we leave. If we can. No, that's not it. Oh dear. Professional. This is harder than the real thing. What am I supposed to click? Is that it? I'm trying to just put the cowling down. On the catch. Down low. Ah, there we go. That's the one. Beautiful. Right, so now we've got to pull the propeller through. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you even GNAV, bro? GNAV in this thing, sure. Okay, that's pulled through. So let's have a crew call, shall we? Sounds cockney now, something. Throttle, right. So then we open the throttle up a little bit. So this is a sort of common light aircraft thing. You've got to crack the throttle open for the start. There we go. Now he sounds Australian again. Crew call. Contact. Right, so you put the forward mags on. And those mags on as well. So we give it a bit of back pressure on the stick. And then hopefully you swing it around and it starts. We're about to find out whether that's going to work. Oh, maybe not. Try again. Go on. Oh, my days. Okay, let's give it a little bit more throttle. Other Richard is in chat. Oh, this feels a lot like flying the real thing. There we go, it's too realistic. I think this is going to need a bit more prime, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, mags are both sets of mags on. I think they're linked together, so. Okay. Okay, hang on. What's in the... I think if you do that, the front one, yeah, the front ones are going to go off as well. Oh. No, like that. Okay, fair enough. Let's try again then. Front on and front on, yeah. Let's go back to the front. I'm going to give up and press control Control S soon. Oh, we are. We're doing great. Professional aviator. This is great. So, right, okay. Well, let's go back inside. What we got? So, engine prime is not at all. So, it's burned all of its prime out. Cool. So, let's go this process. You know what? The starter motor was a great invention. Genuinely. So, let's mash this a bunch of times and hopefully we'll get enough prime in. Probably flood it now, won't we? Engine prime. It's still saying 0. What's going on here? Is the fuel on? Fuel's on. Yeah, it says there, fuel cut off on. So we've got the fuel on. It definitely had the fuel on. The mixture... Hang on. Well, there isn't a mixture in here, is there really? Yeah. This is brilliant. This is exactly the sort of thing that people tune into streams to watch. Engine starting simulator. Right, Brian, let's go back here. If you're wondering, by the way, why we're flying this, we had about 3 or 4 votes on that, and most of them I think were Rich. So everybody blame Rich for this. This isn't going exceptionally. No, it isn't. No. Well, true. Scuff zone. Right, so it's now saying engine prime is 0. Great. So it's still not priming. Any suggestions? Have patience. Yeah, man, I'll try. Okay, let's go back to the magnet. Let's pull it through, because it might be just that the prime needs pulling through. To get it to actually pull into the cylinders, so then it might be primed. And one more for good luck. There we go. Right. Now we're primed. Okay. Okay. It says, well, it says 95. Is 95 going to be good enough? Let's give it another prime just in case. I don't trust it. There we go. And then I suppose we better shut this, otherwise we're going to chop the cowling off with the propeller. Right, okay, so let's put that mag on. Try again. Give it plenty of throttle. Oh, I'm going to lose it. Well, it still says 98% primed. I'm going to try it again. Do we have fuel? Well, we have the fuel. The fuel is turned on, apparently. So the fuel is this little red one here. It says here, fuel cutoff on. So we do have that, apparently. We're 95 primed, 95 out of 100. We've got the front mags on. Are you sure it's just the front mags, Rich? It's not both? Because why wouldn't you start with all the mags on? I don't quite understand that. Should we be a rebel and just try it with both sets on? Right, let's try it again. I've got the throttle pretty much wide open at this point, so that might have some kind of effect. Try clicking the top of the propeller. There's nothing at the top of the propeller. The click spot is like down near the hub. Oh, okay. No. This makes for great viewing. What else can we try other than just spraying? I wish there was, like, you know, the easy start stuff you can use for cars when they're cold. Spray that in the cylinder. Yeah, exactly. Light the plane on fire. So it's losing prime slowly, little bit by little bit. So let's just open that all the way, wide open. Let's throw that forward as well. Let's just go mental. I'm running out of ideas very rapidly here, Rich. Is there anything on the tablet that is going to tell us that's wrong? So let's go back to front on, rear off. There is a quick start button. We're going to give it one more go and then we're going to give up and press it. Cars prime, yeah. Propeller pull back. Propeller pull back, what does that mean? Does that mean you have to crank it backwards? Maybe you have to pull it back to get compression? Maybe not. Nah, we're pressing quick start. I've given I've given up. There we go. Give me a quick start. There we go. Finally, we can actually go flying. So if anyone has any kind of genius ideas why that was completely balked, then let me know. But other than that, we can we're ready to go. So let's bring the checklist back up. So after starting engine, run the engine at 900 to 1000 RPM for 4 minutes. That's a rather long time. It should take us about that time to sort of to go and do all the run-up checks and everything, so that should be fine. Elevator trim should be nose up. I've already set that. Front throttle lever friction slack, and that's fine. Mixture full rich, so let's get that forward. Altimeter set, so the altimeter is set to whatever that is. I just press B, so it's pretty high pressure today, I think. Airspeed indicator, it's indicating not a lot, and it's not broken by the looks of things. Flight instruments, we don't really have many in this airplane. We've just got a turn coordinator and a magnetic compass, and that's about it, really. And engine instruments, airspeed, altitude. Oil pressure, so we should have oil pressure down here of 40 to 45. We definitely, well, yeah, okay, so we'll call it 40. Slot lever. So one of the high-tech features of the Tiger Moth is that it has leading edge devices that are automatic, which is very high-tech, but they need to be locked for taxi, so we'll lock those in. Fire extinguisher, oh my word. So we don't need that. I have no idea. I have no idea. Mags check both on. I think I left them both on, yeah. Fuel quantities. Let's have a look at the fuel quantity. So fuel quantity is up here. We've got about half a tank. The fuel tank is this thing on top of the pilot's head. Very exciting place to have it. And flight controls for incorrect. So let's give the rudder a wiggle and the stick. And we're all good to go. Right. Yeah, elevator trim is nose up. Avoid taxiing or idling at low RPM. Flight controls for incorrect. All right, okay, let's go and taxi then. So I don't really know where the wind's coming from, to be perfectly honest. I think, well, I assume that's Rich in the other Tiger Moth, and he's landing on runway 24. So we're going to go for runway 24. Let's get the chocks away. There we go. And we should be ready to go. So one of the interesting things about the Tiger Moth is that it doesn't have a tail wheel, or at least most of them don't. So you're kind of restricted to taxiing on grass most of the time. So the drill usually is to keep the stick all the way back as far as you can. And as you usually do with tailwheel aircraft, you do a little sort of zigzag. The other interesting thing about the Tiger Moth is it doesn't have any brakes. So you keep your taxi nice and slow and you use the natural drag of not having a tailwheel to slow yourself down. Congrats on the 5K. Love the information about the real planes in your reviews. Oh, thank you. We live to try to provide people with information, have a bit of fun while we do it. That's what the channel's all about. There we go. Right, so normal takeoff, elevator trim to neutral. So I'm going to trim forward a little bit now. We've got no trim indicator, so, well, we've got the lever here, so it's sort of in the neutral position, hopefully. We'll say that's about in the middle. Mixture full rich, so let's push that up. Fuel is on. Slots gain checklist unlocked. Ooh, error. Well, we'll assume that unlocked is the right position for the slots, if I remember rightly. Throttle to 900 RPM, which pretty much we've got. Mags test drop by 100 RPM. So, hang on, let's make sure we do have 900. There we go, crank it up a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to test each mag individually. So this is just to make sure we don't have a failed magneto. The hard part is you can't really see the RPM indicator there. Now, believe it or not, if there isn't a drop at all, that's also a problem because that indicates the switch is broken and there's some kind of grounding error on the switch. But there we go. I think we are fitted with brakes on this aeroplane because it does seem like I can hold it on the tow brakes. So a lot of Tiger Moths were retrofitted with brakes. The one I flew didn't have them, but it's a useful thing to have in Flight Simulator, that's for sure. Flight controls for incorrect, so let's give it another quick check of the controls. Are all full and free, and obviously we'd check on the ailerons as well and the elevator because we can just look out the back and see it moving around there. So check we've got full and free on that, and right hand down, right side up, other side opposite, left hand down, left side up, other side opposite. So that's your controls check. And then it's full throttle and we're climbing at 60 knots, absolutely blistering speed, and that's pretty much it, really. There's not that much to worry about. So, before we get going, because it might get a little bit loud, please let me know if the levels are a little bit wonky on the stream. What we're going to do is we're going to try and take off and fly towards the Peak District National Park, because the scenery is nice over there, and also that's kind of where I did most of my Tiger Moth flying in real life, so I'm a simple person and I stick to what I know. Now in real life there's a hedge back here, and you'd usually get the back of your plane as close to the hedge as you dare. Microsoft Flight Simulator hasn't quite modelled the hedge, so we'll just have to do our best. Completely overshot that. Right, so we're going to start off with stick full forward. Now you'd hope that there was as little crosswind as possible because these airplanes do not like crosswinds. You need quite a lot of rudder, so you've got to kind of dance around on the rudder a lot. But like you can see there, barely need any more than 40 odd knots and it'll come off the ground. One of the wonky things about the Tiger Moth is that its propeller turns the opposite direction to most light aircraft. So instead of right rudder in the climb and on takeoff, you need a left rudder. But other than that, it's a really, really easy aeroplane to fly, and it's a lot of fun, especially in the summer when it's nice and warm. You can enjoy the open cockpit experience. You'll find it needs a lot of rudder to get it around. So you kind of pedal it around. You can, yeah. As you can with a lot of light aircraft, actually. My old boss used to, his party trick used to be flying a circuit in a Tomahawk just using the doors. So you could use the doors on the Tomahawk, you could open them up and use them like little air brakes. So you can have differential air brakes left or right, and you could use that to roll the aeroplane and then just use the throttle for pitch. And yeah, there you go. But yeah, the Tomahawk, the most terrifyingly dangerous one out there. But yeah, there we go. So we're going to make a turn to the right now. It's a left-hand circuit at Netherthorpe, but let's assume we're just departing straight out. And we can already see the hills out in the distance there. It might take us a while to get there, so bear with. Hopefully this is not going to take too long though, because I don't want the entire stream to just be Tiger Moth. Like I said though, any requests for aeroplanes or anything like that, please stick them in chat, and I'll do my best to fulfill them. Yeah, questions about aeroplanes. Yeah, anything GA, but anything airliners. I know YouTube is kind of full of airline pilot streamers, so I try not to step on their feet too much. But if you do have any questions about the 737 or the Dash 8 or anything like that, I'm always happy to at least try to answer. 1,000 feet. I'd be getting a nosebleed in the real Tiger Moth at this height. It's quite rough though. I think it's quite windy. So I'm navigating very accurately at the moment just by pointing in the rough direction. I know that this city over here is Sheffield. So this is one of the largest cities in the UK. It's built across a bunch of different hills. So it's quite easily recognizable. So I know if I sort of scout around that, we don't really want to fly over the middle of it because if we have an engine failure, you don't want to be bang over the top of a city. So you usually try to avoid cities if you're flying at low altitude. But once we've passed Sheffield, we should be out into the peaks, and we should have some nice scenery and some nice valleys to go and play around. Didn't they release an AMG for Microsoft? You mean a car? What? What? AMG review when? Okay, well, yeah, could give it a go. I'd have to get an expert assistance there with that one, because obviously I don't own an AMG. Unfortunately, they don't pay pilots that much. Okay, so little landmark for you here. This motorway here, this major road, is the M1 motorway. So this is the longest and oldest motorway in the UK. It runs north-south up from London all the way heading up towards Scotland. I think it ends just south of the Scottish border. So it's a good landmark when you're flying around here because you can just follow it. Old school navigation, you generally just have your chart on your lap and a compass to give you a rough idea, and then you just follow landmarks, which is pretty much, well, it's kind of what I'm doing. I don't have a map. I'm just using my memory because I've flown around here quite a bit in real life. So the great thing about Microsoft Flight Simulator is that the scenery is accurate enough for you to navigate VFR, which is really... I know there's a lot of failings with Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I'm sure Rich will tell you until he's blue in the face about all of them, but as far as I'm concerned, it's the first flight simulator that I've ever played where you can properly navigate VFR without having to install lots and lots of add-on scenery. So to me, that is that's brilliant, and that's why I like Microsoft Flight Simulator so much. So we've got a little series of lakes here. This is a water sports centre called Rother Valley. It's a good little landmark if you're flying around here. You can use that to point your way back towards the airfield. Netherthorpe is really notoriously difficult to spot. So anything that you can see that you can use as a landmark to point your way towards it is useful. I'm going to take you over here a little bit closer to the city, because there's a couple things that might be of interest in that general direction. I always remember when I was flying this airplane in real life, we passed over the top of a steam traction engine rally. And we just kind of circled over the top a couple of times, and everyone was kind of waving up at us and stuff like that, which is really nice. It's not very often that you fly over a bunch of people in an airplane and they actually are pleased to see you. Most of the time they just give you noise complaints. Would this plane ever fly in IFR conditions, any nav instruments? Yeah, IFR is a funny one. So the legal minimum for IFR flying is you need basically a method to communicate with air traffic control. So you need a radio. You need a method of communicating your position with air traffic control. So you need a transponder. And you need to have planned an MSA, a minimum safe altitude. And as long as you've done those things, you're perfectly free to go and fly IFR. Now, you also, what the rules also say is you need sufficient instruments for your flight. So if you're actually going to go up and fly in a cloud, then you're going to want some pretty basic instruments. You're going to want an attitude indicator, for example, which we don't have here. I mean, we have a turn coordinator, so strictly speaking, if you wanted to be, if you were really, really brave, you could do time turns and just fly on the altimeter and airspeed. But you would be a very, very brave human being to take one of these up into a cloud. Plus, the other issue is all of your sort of icing conditions that you're associated with instrument met conditions IMC. And obviously, you've got no protection against any of that stuff. You don't even have a pitot heater. So, yeah. Legally speaking, technically speaking, yeah, if you were very brave, you could take this aircraft into IMC. Realistically speaking, would you do that? No. Although I'm sure there's someone brave/mental enough to give it a go. Generally, as a rule, no. Yeah, generally, as a rule, no. I mean, you're kind of defeating the object if you're flying something like this into a cloud. You're most of the time, you want to take it up on a nice, sunny day, nice, clear day. You're flying around at low altitude, 80 knots, puttering around, enjoying the scenery, maybe doing a few little basic aerobatic maneuvers, and coming home for a burger and a pint of beer, really. I think that's the Tiger Moth pilot's normal MO. Plus, you've got to remember that these aircraft are all vintage. They're all collector's items. They're worth a lot of money. So most owners of an aeroplane like this aren't going to put them in under threat by flying them into risky sort of conditions. Good question, though. What if you want to touch the clouds? Well, yeah. I mean, if the clouds are low enough, you can go up and you can try and fly around them. I mean, I don't want to hazard a guess on that cloud base. It's probably about 1,000 feet above us at the moment. It would take us about 5 minutes to get up there. So, off to the right, little bit of local knowledge here. So this bit of waste ground here used to be an airport. So this was Sheffield City Airport back in the day. So you used to be able to fly. It was all turboprops, I think. They never got any jets in here because the runway is just too short. But there used to be Dash 8s and Fokkers and all sorts of other diverse turboprops used to come in here, and you could used to go to Amsterdam and Jersey and things like that. I once flew to Jersey on a Dash 8 Q300 out of here. It was the first time I flew on a Dash 8, and sort of made my mind up that I absolutely loved that aeroplane. So yeah, there we go. How would one navigate an IMC? Did you say timings? In this aeroplane, yeah, well, yeah, it would be very, very difficult. You would need to position fix yourself initially, and then fly very, very accurately. Bear in mind, you've only got a magnetic compass. And then hope that you popped out of the IMC by the time you got to your next turning point, because there'd be no way of navigating accurately, that's for sure. Now, obviously, we live in the modern age where you'd probably have a little handheld GPS with you, and if you had one of those, then you'd obviously use your GPS. But yeah, if you were going fully old school, there's no real way to navigate IMC in this aircraft. It's just headings and timings and praying, basically. Again, that's going back to those that rule that says you need sufficient instruments to complete your flight. So if you can't navigate, then you don't have sufficient instruments. Therefore, you can't undertake the flight. Couple other little bits of local knowledge about here. Boeing have a manufacturing facility here. I'm not 100% sure what they make. It might be composite parts for the wings and things like that. There's also a factory for the McLaren Formula 1 team, so they make chassis, I think, carbon fibre chassis, somewhere around here. Can't remember exactly. Thanks for all the great questions, by the way, guys. Keep them coming. Give me something to chat about. So in front of us, we can see the Peak District sort of starting to pop out. Just rising up in front of us. Great place to go walking. Great place to ride your bike. Great place to drive your car. If you're into driving down country lanes, there's a few really good ones. Now we're getting a little bit too far over the top of the city. Or closer to the city than I really wanted to be, because I wanted to show you the old airport. But I think we could probably glide clear over onto here, so we're still safe. Would I like to fly a crop duster? Yeah, that'd be really cool. I'd love that. Anything quirky or funny, I'll give it a go. In fact, weirdly enough, the company I fly for at the moment does crop dusting, sort of, with a 737. So we have a contract to do oil spill response. So if there's an oil spill somewhere around the UK, there's a number of different companies. There's one company that uses 727s. They're very cool. And there's us, and we go out there with the 73, and it's a spray-equipped 73. It's basically got holes through where the windows used to be in the back, and you poke the boom out of the back of the aeroplane, and you fly low level, unpressurized. You have a big sort of diesel generator in the back that runs the spray pump, and you spray, it's basically like dishwasher fluid onto the ocean to disperse an oil spill. And they do that from sort of 100 foot above the ground. And I was flying with our chief pilot the other day, who does this spray flying, and he was telling me they were up training somewhere in Scotland, and they saw a whale swimming around, and they were like, "Oh wow, whale!" But then you realise that when whales are up on the surface, when they're like doing the sort of big breathing thing where they spout water out the top, it attracts lots of birds, because the birds come to eat any fish that they leave behind when they're eating, and also they come to eat the whale's snot, because birds are disgusting like that, and when the whale is breathing out, a lot of snot goes with it. So all of a sudden, that went from, oh wow, a whale, to, oh wow, we're going to crash into a load of birds. So they had to quickly get out of there before they caught a load of seagulls in the engines, which is a disgusting but true story for you there. So that's what sort of graphic settings do you use? I'm quite lucky that I've got quite a good rig, so I just go into the settings and I just set everything to ultra. But what I would recommend, Two-Tone Murphy has got a really, really good video on getting the most out of your graphic settings. So I'd point you in that direction. Two-Tone Murphy, he's a streamer, he's an Irish guy. He's got a video on YouTube about your graphic settings. That's what I watched to try and get my try and get my graphics working for me. So I'd definitely suggest going to watch that. There's a trick you can do with the shader cache. If you clear that out, that tends to give you a bunch more frames. Okay, so we're still flying at a stonking speed. I suspect we're going into wind here. If I was to pull a GPS up, you'd probably have a ground speed of about 50 knots or something at the moment, so hence why we're kind of chugging along. But we're almost there. We're going to head up towards the peaks in a sec and have a little fly around there, drop down to lower altitude, and then we'll head on back. The chap I used to fly this aeroplane with, he ended up landing his Tiger Moth in a field because he had an engine failure. And he was like, the engine just died on him. He's like, what happened, what happened, what happened? And what had happened was his passenger here was trying to lean out of the cockpit and take photos, and they put their hand on the side of the cowling, and you saw at the start of the flight where the magneto switches are. They're on the outside out here. And you just turn the engine off, basically. So, but the great thing about a Tiger Moth is it lands and takes off so slowly, it was no big deal to just fly out of the field. So he just turned the engine back on and flew home. Don't know if it's just me, but there's no sound coming from... Oh, right, okay. I don't know. You still there, Rich? He might not be there. He's still here. Can you hear the engine sound coming out the sim? Good old OBS. What's going on? How about now?
There we go.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm new to all this. I don't know how it even did it, but OBS managed to turn the game sounds off. I thought dietary requirements were hot chips. Must be a cool thing. Yeah, I mean, sure. I wouldn't suggest spicy food before going flying, but if you're brave, then give it a go. So, interesting little fact about the Tiger Moth. So, all of the really cool fighter pilots in the Second World War would have started out on one of these things, or at least the British ones did. This was the RAF's initial trainer back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. So you start out on one of these, and they stick you in a Harvard or a Texan, as you guys stateside will know it as. And then they shove you in a Spitfire, and I'm not entirely sure how much flight training you got, but it wasn't an awful lot. It was probably in the region of about 40 or 50 hours, not very much at all.
8 hours on the Spit, I think.
8 hours on the Spit before you go into combat.
Yeah,
Love it.
1940, yeah.
Wow. I'd struggle flying due to very weak bladder. Well, fair play, fair play. You just need to fly an aeroplane that's got a toilet.
Or a hole in the floor.
Or a hole in the floor, yeah. Or a big plastic bottle. The our company flies ATR freighters. So as part of the process to turn an ATR into a freighter, you take the toilet out because they're so small inside, you've got no space for anything else. So they all fly around with old plastic bottles just in case. Makes me glad that that I don't fly an ATR, put it that way. Believe it or not, some light aircraft do have toilets in them. The Cessna 414 springs to mind immediately, which we might see later in the stream if somebody asks for it. Right, we'll do a little bombing run down the reservoir here in front of us, and then we'll turn back for home. Just trying to work out, I mean, the famous reservoir just over here. I don't know if we've got, might be able to make it. If we kind of come over this way, I should be able to spot it fairly soon. So there's Lady Bower Reservoir over here somewhere, which is where the dam busters used to practice for the raids on the dams in Germany in the Second World War. So it might be worth coming to have a look at that. Nice open country. Yeah, it's a really nice part of the world. It's a really great place to go walking, cycling, anything like that. 414 would be good somewhere with snow since it's nearly Christmas. Yeah, okay, cool. It's on the list. Maybe have a look at that new Nordic scenery that Microsoft Flight Simulator's just brought in. So this is Low Bradfield Reservoir here, which has quite a cool dam which kind of overlooks the city. You wouldn't want that thing to break because a lot of people are going to have flooded houses. But if you fly down this and point off the end of it, it should point right at Lady Bower, so I'm hopefully going the right way for this. Doesn't like that. I'm actually having to lean out slightly. Really doesn't like high altitudes.
2,500 feet.
2,500 feet. It starts getting a bit asthmatic. So another interesting Tiger Moth fact. So most light aircraft have horizontally opposed engines, or boxer engines. For those of you as kind of engineering inclination, so if you're into your mechanical stuff, you'll know what that is. It's a bit like it's a Subaru engine or a Porsche engine, basically. Air-cooled, very, very basic. But the Tiger Moth actually has an inline four-cylinder engine called a Gypsy Major engine. So, very cool engine. It was fitted to a lot of different British aeroplanes in the 1920s, very famous bit of kit. The weird thing about, well, first of all, it's upside down, so a bit like the German engines in the BF-109 and the Heinkel HE-111, all those sorts of things, although they were much more technologically advanced than the Gypsy Major, but it's positioned upside down to try and keep the centre of gravity of the aeroplane lower. And it's also for cooling airflow, because it sticks the cylinders out into the airflow underneath the plane. So a little bit of a quirky fact about the Tiger Moth. It also gives it quite a distinctive sound compared to your regular light aircraft like your Pipers and your Cessnas and things like that. You can always hear a Tiger Moth coming.
One another thing is you can pull an entire cylinder off in one piece.
You can, but you can do that with a opposed engine as well.
That's true.
Or at least you can with the opposed engines in Pipers and Cessnas and stuff.
Yeah.
Deutz used to use a lot of air-cooled engines long ago. I'm assuming that's the farm equipment company? I mean, it makes sense because you can do away with a whole radiator water cooling system and make everything a lot more simple. There's a lot less to go wrong. The only issue is if your cooling airflow starts to fail. So you'll often see a lot of light aircraft sat on the ground running their engines quite high when they're sat stationary, and it's just to keep the propeller turning at a reasonable rate to keep the cooling air flowing. I think it's just in front of us, I think. You can also work on individual cylinders on a Deutz cooled engine. Ah, there we go. So similar concept, farm machinery, aeroplane engines, it's all the same stuff. You just want it to be reliable.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a 6-litre 4-cylinder engine.
Beautiful. So I'd imagine there's some pretty big balance shafts inside it to keep it smooth running, because a 4-cylinder engine of that displacement is going to be rough as a rough thing. Due to environmental regulations, air-cooled engines got canned. Sadly, damn it. That's isn't that the story of everything cool these days? Can't have it anymore. Bad for the environment. Naughty, naughty. Alright, we just got to get over this one last little hill here. Come on, Tiger Moth, you can do it. Someone's got a house right on the top of that hill. That looks brilliant. Look at that. There we go. Hello, I'd like to live there.
Imagine the Dam Busters film if they used Tiger Moths. What a suspense.
I mean, the film would be about 8 hours long.
And the rest of it.
And instead of dropping bouncing bombs, they'd have had to drop grenades. But yeah, why not? I'm sure that the Germans would have enjoyed it more that way. Getting a bit rough as we get over the top of the hills here. That's just because we've got some quite strong winds, and they cause rotor winds on the lee side, on the downwind side of the hill. Now, normally you'd try to avoid getting into these, because if they're bad enough, the downdrafts can be sufficient to actually outperform the climb performance of your aeroplane. So let's say the Tiger Moth can go up at maybe, I don't know, 800 feet per minute or something like that if it's in a good mood. If you get a downdraft of 1,000 feet per minute, that means the net result, even if you're flying at max rate of climb, is you're going down at 200 feet per minute. So, yeah, bit of a danger zone. I really hope we get a stonking tailwind on the way back.
Well, I'm flying directly east and ground speed of 36 knots.
Beautiful. So it's definitely an easterly wind then.
I don't know where you are because you're tagged this way, so, but I'm vaguely in the same place.
Could we do a flight plan using G1000 for a DA62 flight? Yeah, sure. Have you ever flown the Chipmunk? I would love to fly the Chipmunk, but sadly not. The Chipmunk uses a version of this engine as well. A bit more powerful. It's a slightly heavier aeroplane. But it's, yeah, everyone says the Chipmunk is an absolutely fantastic aeroplane to fly, and sadly I've never flown one myself.
So everybody appears to have a friend who owns a Chipmunk, but they've never got in one.
Ah, yeah. Well, our old ops manager bought himself a chipmunk flying lesson, or had one bought for him as a birthday present, and I was immensely jealous.
Ground speed 27 knots.
I need to. Can I get a GPS on here? So I want to see what my ground speed is.
Yeah, it's in the pocket on the right where the tablet goes.
Okay. On the right.
The right
Ah,
the
yeah,
right
got it.
Yeah, you're
Let's
right
have a
here.
look. Let's have a look. Map. They give me a ground speed. No. Never mind. I feel like I'm cheating now. I've got a GPS up.
Yeah, Tom, that's 8 hours and then into combat straight away. It's not even just learning to fly the damn thing.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they didn't really care if you wrecked it so much. It's a lot quicker to build a plane than train a pilot.
Especially back then. Right. There's the famous Lady Bower Reservoir. So let's go do a downbuster run, shall we?
In slow motion.
In slow motion. Quite proud that I've actually managed to navigate out here. I'm going to pat myself on the back. Of course, most people won't know what Lady Bower Reservoir is supposed to look like, so I could have just picked a random piece of water out in the scenery, and I could just be deceiving you all. But
Rich is in there somewhere.
yeah, oh yeah, true. Yeah, we've got someone from this part of the world
Genuine Yorkshireman.
on our Discord, a genuine, no word of a lie Yorkshireman, who could probably tell us what Lady Bower Reservoir looks like.
Oh, it's a nice ridge left here, though.
Yeah, it's
They left it behind, but going up like something ridiculous.
yeah. It was really rough on the other side, so try and orientate myself to actually get properly over the dam. Right, so mountain flying experts among us will now tell me that I'm about to do something very stupid, but I'm in a Tiger Moth, so I've got the turning circle of a housefly. There we go, right, let's go for it. Bouncing bombs at the ready.
Beach balls.
Beach balls, yeah, bouncing beach balls. Get very, very rough now.
Yeah, I don't remember what the washout time was for basic training, but that wasn't too long either. They just like 12 hours to go solo or something, and that was the cut-off.
Yeah, if you couldn't solo in 12 hours, then you were told to go and do something else.
Piss off and be a gunner or something.
Yeah. Hopefully the Aeroplane Heaven Lancaster will be good. Yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to have a Lancaster in the simulator. I'm actually very privileged to know a real-life Lancaster pilot who works for the Air Force, and we've got one of the only flying Lancasters in the world still in this country. So if he's not too busy, I might be able to get him on the channel to talk about the Lancaster when that comes out.
No, that would be something.
So, funny story, there was an urban legend that the Civil Aviation Authority, which is the UK's equivalent of the FAA for you American guys, put a camera down this valley because so many people were doing what we're doing at the moment, low-level scudding it down the valley, pretending to be a Lancaster. I don't know if it was true, but it was true enough to scare a lot of the pilots I knew who used to do it on the regular. Oh, this is getting rough. Really don't fancy snapping the wings off. That'd be an unpleasant way to end the flight, wouldn't it? So that the Merlin sound, yeah, that's one of the main things, isn't it? If the sounds are right. It's almost like sounds and flight model are probably the two most important things for a flight simulator aeroplane. The looks, you know, it's pretty much a given that the airplane's going to look good, especially if it's in Microsoft Flight Simulator. There's almost nothing that's been brought to this simulator that looks like rubbish. But yeah, sounds, get it sounding right, get it blasting your eardrums out, and get it flying a reasonable approximation of what a Lancaster should fly like, and should be onto a winner. Cameras are a myth. There speaks the expert.
I mean, 500 feet from everything? I guess it is kind of close-up gauge, is it?
Yeah, the issue is there's a lot of people. It's a very scenic part of the world. There's always a lot of people sightseeing and stuff. And if you're smashing it down the valley at 10 feet above the water, you're bound to break the 500 foot rule at some point. So yeah, they've got a point. Right, let's see if we can climb out, head home.
Wow, there's not much setup time for that dam.
No, there isn't. Ooh, that's 40 knots. Don't run me going that slow. Might be a bit of wind shear on the upwind side. How do I find the honeycomb? I absolutely love it, personally. I think it is pretty much... well, it's definitely the best piece of flight sim hardware I've ever used. And it's a reasonable approximation for the weight of most light aircraft controls. It's maybe a little bit light for something like an Arrow, because the Arrow is notoriously heavy on the yoke. But for most other things, it's very, very good. And even for the 737, maybe not so much for the 300, because the 300 is weirdly heavy in roll. But for the 400 you can fly it with your fingertips. So it even is a good approximation of what a 737-400 feels like to fly. So I'm a huge fan of the honeycomb. I think it's great. I've got the Bravo throttle as well, which I find really good. There's also a company called ProDesk Sim, if you are into flying a particular airliner or what have you. And they will do you a set of accurate levers for the Bravo. So I'm really very sorely tempted by the ones they've just released for the 737, because they've actually got the proper auto throttle disconnect on the end of the throttles, which is very cool. Realism and immersion and all that. Right, there we go. We've survived. We're back out. We've now got a tailwind. Back the throttle off a little bit, and we'll head back towards Netherthorpe, and hopefully some kind of approximation of a good landing. Now, any of you who've flown tail dragger aircraft in simulator or in real life will know that the landings are kind of the hard part of flying a tail dragger. That and taxiing. There's various different techniques you can use, a lot of high performance aerobatic aircraft like extra 300s and things like that. They tend to come down in a side slip. The Tiger Moth, because it was the training aircraft for the Spitfire, and probably because it's just the easiest thing to do, generally flies a curved approach. So exactly how you would in a Spitfire, you fly a banana down final approach so you can see the runway. So that's what I'm going to be trying to do when we get back. So the auto throttle disco buttons actually work with their mod for the Bravo. Yeah, they've got the auto throttle disconnect buttons. They've got one on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side you got your Bravo on. So if you're flying it first officer style, you've got a button on that side, and if you're flying it captain style, you've got it on that side. And they've also got the proper toga button as well, which is kind of on the swan neck part of the throttle, sort of push your hand over the top. So really, really good for the old muscle memory, because you kind of develop a bit of a sense of using your thumb or using your middle finger to kind of poke one button or the other, especially on final approach, because you're either going to be pressing one or the other, either the disconnect to take control manually and land the plane, or the toga button to go around. So yeah, I'm probably going to get those some point in the new year once I've had another paycheck, maybe a bit of a Christmas bonus.
Been paid.
Yes. So I'll get those, and maybe I'll do a little review of them. Now I'm definitely tempted. Yeah, like I said, I'm very tempted. I've got their first ones that they made, the basic sort of ones, and they're nice. It's got a little spring-loaded flap selector handle, which is really cool. But the new ones are kind of a step up from that, and yeah, very, very tempting. Back over Sheffield, we've got Park Hill Flats up on here. See if I can pick out any more details. It's quite a nice city, right on the edge of the hills here, of the countryside. So there's a lot of nice sort of leafy suburbs and things like that. It's got a bit of a reputation as an old northern industrial city, but it's still quite a pretty place. For Yorkshire, I mean, you know. Just saying that for other Richard's benefit. So let's do a quick check of the fuel. So we've got about a quarter of a tank remaining. Should be plenty to get home. T's and P's are all happy. Instruments, we don't really have any to set. We can, we'd probably be tuning in to Netherthorpe radio and trying to pick up a QNH or a QFE if you're that way inclined, which is a altimeter setting. Now what I'm trying to look for is there are a set of wind turbines close to Netherthorpe. It's not those, it's not the big group there, because that's Thurcroft interchange there, so that's quite a distinctive one. But the ones I'm looking for are a little bit south of that. So we should pass the Rother Valley Water Sports Centre again. In fact, that might be it on the nose, can't quite see. And then once I can spot 3 little wind farms together in a group, that's roughly where the airfield is, so that's what we're going to be going for. The great thing about VFR flying is really just, it's the freedom to just kind of go up and kind of think, oh yeah, I fancy going that way, I fancy seeing what's over there, so on and so forth, which is so far removed from what flying an airliner is like, or flying IFR is like, where you're basically just following a predefined flight plan. You're very tightly controlled by air traffic control. You often find a lot of guys, a little bit of a freeze, when they're going through the training, they're so desperate to get out of light aircraft and get into airliners and all the rest of it, and then they sort of think a few months down the line, they're like, oh, actually, I quite miss flying a Piper or a Cessna or whatever. A lot of them come back to it and come back to the local flying club, maybe even buy an aeroplane of their own if they're lucky enough to get a really good airline job.
only the ones called Nigel.
Yeah, the ones called Nigel can afford their own aeroplanes. The rest of us just have to... Well, the great thing about being or having a flying instructor ticket is that flying schools are always desperate for flying instructors. There's never enough of us. So I could pretty much rock up at any flying school and say, do you need some ad hoc instruction doing on a weekend or something? And they'd say, yeah, sure, go for it. Give us your license, let's have a look at your CV, and we'll see you on Saturday at 7 AM. So I've told the flying school where I used to work that into the new year, coming into the new year, when I'm going to have a little bit more time on my plate, then I'm going to be coming back and doing a bit of instruction for them. So that way I get to do both. Not that I'm not enjoying flying the 737 at the moment, because 737, especially the classic, the NG is a little bit more quirky in its handling, shall we say, but the 73 Classic is just a really, really good old school aeroplane. Very, very nice to hand fly. A lot of fun. And the great thing about flying cargo is you've got no passengers to annoy doing slightly non-standard things. So, for example, we did a visual approach the other night because it was nice and quiet. There's nobody about. Air traffic were happy to let us do it. The captain was not just happy to let me do it, he was encouraging me to do it. So just gave it a go. And just like you would a light aircraft, just swung it around the corner, stuck it on final approach, all visual. No flight directors or anything like that. It was brilliant. Really, really good fun. So for me, the ability to do that sort of stuff is far more important than having a fancy uniform and a massive paycheck at the end of the month. Maybe when, you know, when I'm 30 years older and jaded and fed up with everything, maybe a big paycheck is all I'll be looking for. But certainly at the moment, I'm really enjoying myself. Right, look at this. Look, there's the airfield down there. It's almost like I know what I'm doing. Got the town of Worksop just behind it there, which also has a big wind farm. You can just see it just there. So we always used to use these various different little features as markers for the circuit. Now, I can't remember exactly what the airfield elevation is at Netherthorpe, so
just land and find out.
Yeah, it's going to be a guess. I know the circuit altitude or the circuit height is 800 feet because it's such a small place. Let's see if we've got any landing checks to do. Fuel sufficient rid of the circuit, yeah. Mixture full rich, yeah. Slots unlocked, yeah. Final approach speed 48 massive knots. Great thing is about this airplane, you fly so slowly. If you do really mess up the landing, you're not really going to be hurting yourself too badly. So I've flown that a little bit too far out, you can see. So really, ideally, you're supposed to try and time the approach so the corner ends right as you're coming over the numbers. So I've turned a little bit too far out. Kind of didn't anticipate just how much wind there was. But we'll get there. There we go.
I looked up and you were going straight for the hangars.
I'm pretty sure I'm not. I'm pretty sure I'm on the runway.
You're okay now, but this is where head tracking helps.
Ah.
If anyone's thinking about looking at head tracking, so you can just lean out the cockpit Also, if you VFR, it's nice to just look around.
Yeah,
Just move your head.
yeah, absolutely. Especially flying circuits, it's very hard to do just using the mouse to look around. But sadly, all of my years as a flying instructor left me bereft of the funds to buy things like that, and hopefully soon I'll not be quite so, shall we say, horribly broke, and I'll be able to afford some nice bits and bobs for flight sim.
Well, if you don't spend it all on your car, perhaps.
Well, yeah, that's the issue. There we go, right. So, set the throttle. Let's have a look at the... so, elevator trim nose up, so let's just trim it nose up. That way. That'll do. Mags off. Prop stops. Throttles fully closed. And then we just got to put the chocks in, which, yeah, there we go. We've got the chocks in. And there you go. That's a bit of Tiger Moth for you. Aeroplane that you've not seen on this channel before, but it is really, really good little aeroplane. It's not too expensive.
Yeah, it's dirt cheap. It's very good.
Yeah, you can tell a lot of time and effort and love's gone into making this. It handles very much like the real one, as far as I can remember. Not flown the real one in many years. It's got the engine start sequence, which completely baffled me, but maybe you can go out and work out how to do it properly. Yeah, and you can have a lot of fun flying around VFR low level. Just don't anticipate going very far because you're not going to be going very quickly. So there you go. Yeah.
It looks good too.
It looks good too, yeah. But like I said, what doesn't in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Very, very aesthetically pleasing simulator. Anyway, there we go. So let's pick up our next airplane, shall we? So the first request I got was for a DA62. So we're going to do DA62. Now, do I have the mod installed? Because I don't really want to fly the default one. Might have to just bear with, and I'll grab the 62X mod, which is very, very good, and I recommend that for anyone. No, I don't have it right. 2 seconds. Rich will keep you all entertained with, with I don't know, a dancing hamster.
I'm in the circuit, so.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, any questions? Has anyone got any questions that you want to throw at me while I'm spending 2 minutes downloading this mod, and restarting the game? Doesn't have to be about flight sim. It can be about flying, flight training, any types of airplane, the 737, light aircraft. Not about gliders. I've never flown a glider or helicopter. But other than that,
I was going to say, ask him about helicopters.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that would be your question then, wouldn't it?
I guess.
Congrats! Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's nice to have the reward of 5,000 subscribers. It feels very cool, very good. How long we got? 55 seconds. Whew. So the DA62X mod was made by a really good guy called Mr. Tommy MXR, who has an interesting choice of profile pictures, shall we say? And he is currently working on a DA42 in conjunction with a bunch of other guys, including Boris, the sound specialist person, who worked on the working title A320, or is it working? Oh, it's fly-by-wire, isn't it? Fly-by-wire A320. Did all of their sounds, and he's also released several different sound packs for the default aircraft in Microsoft Flight Sim. So the sounds are really good, put it that way. I've been lucky enough to be helping them test it and give feedback on all sorts of different bits and bobs. No idea of a release date just yet, but it shouldn't be too long in the future, because it's almost ready to go. It's very, very good. Spoiler alert. and I'll be showing it on the channel. I'll be doing a review video as soon as it's out. So, yeah, this is a little taste of what the 42 is going to be like. Like I said, the 62 is a big brother to the 42. So it has essentially the same engines, very similar sort of fuselage layouts and the rest of it. A few differences. There we go. Right, back into the game.
Question from chat: how long do you think until electric battery getting into mainstream private flying?
Ooh, okay, good question. I think we're on the verge of that now. We're really on the verge of it. The issue is the endurance that they've got. So I know that our flying school was actually looking at them at one point potentially as a as an aircraft for doing ab initio PPL training. But the problem is that they've only got about an hour endurance, and you really have to have some kind of final reserve thrown in there. So you've got to have some kind of 15-minute, at the very least, final reserve. So that means your lessons can be only 45 minutes long and have to be pretty close to the starting airfield. So it kind of means that a lot of the lessons that you're supposed to do as part of the PPL, especially the later ones, the navigation lessons, you just can't do them. And even the early ones, they would generally be an hour to an hour and a half long. So you'd probably end up doing a lot more sorties, a lot more short sorties. But in terms of how long it's going to take until they're in the sort of consumer market for people who just want to kind of go out half an hour, bimble around the local area, I think that's pretty much now. You can probably pick one up. How they compare in terms of price to a traditional light aircraft, I'm not so sure. I think you might be significantly financially better off buying an old Cessna, put it that way. But yeah, it's they're out there. Pipistrel is the one that we were looking at our flying school. So if you're interested in that, have a look. I don't know if there's any for flight sim yet, but might be an interesting aeroplane to try out if there are. One of the weird things about them is that when you close the throttle, the propeller just stops. So when you sat there on a taxiway waiting to take off or something, it looks like your engine's shut down because you're not going anywhere. As soon as you open the throttle, then the prop starts spinning again. So that's very strange for anyone used to a regular light aircraft. So yeah, there we go.
Saw an interesting article the other day about somebody's converting a BAE 146 into a...
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
They reckon it'll last an hour with reserve, so that's basically London to Paris distance. I guess you couldn't hold.
Will it? Have they said it'll have the same performance as the regular one? Interesting.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, I guess they picked it because it's 4 engines, so you can.
Yeah, of course. There's lots of redundancy.
2 giant motors. You know?
Right. Okay. So, where do we want to start for this DA62 flight? Who suggested the 62 flight? Was it Tom? Tom B? Where do you want me to fly? Bear in mind, if it's not UK, I've got a limited amount of local knowledge. I had experience flying the Warrior. Great fun. Instructor really let me do the majority flying. Yeah, that's the whole point of being a flying instructor. You're supposed to let the other guy do as much as they want to do. So if they're really keen and they're quite switched on and they really want to do lots of flying, then give them the plane and you let them have at it. I've flown with some really talented people who I've let them take it pretty much all the way down the approach, almost to the point of touching down and landing, and just taking it off them at the very last second. So yeah, that's the mark of a good flying instructor, is they'll let you do as much as you want. Yeah, maybe the Cotswolds. Oh, okay, cool. Cotswolds. Let's see. So if we start off in Gloucester, because I know Gloucester reasonably well, we should be able to fly around the Cotswolds. And you wanted to see an IFR flight plan as well, didn't you? So we'll try and set one of those up too. Let me see. Echo Golf Bravo Juliet.
Campbell to Newquay's kind of a straight line, though, isn't it? Down the 7 and straight.
Yeah, kind of. I know, we'll take off and we'll try to we'll shoot an approach into Cardiff or something like that. Do you want me to do it in the daytime or live time? How do you plane? You hold your hands out and you run as fast as you can.
The more noise you make, the faster you
exactly, yeah, exactly. Hang on, how do I? So Flying Savlaki, for people who don't know, is Jimbo, who is the co-founder of this channel. So there's 3 of us.
Are you in game yet, by the way?
I am in game, yeah. Hang on, I'll
switch scene.
go back to there. We go. Yeah, so he, along with our other friend who calls himself Wallace, made this channel originally back when the pandemic started. So live would be great. Okay, we're going in the dark then. Live everything. All right, there we go. So we'll start off at a parking spot. Set as departure, and we need to remember to pick a DA62, don't we? There we go. What's the coolest livery on here? The black one, of course. There we go. Nobody's going to see us now. Right, let's go.
Where are you going? Campbell to Newquay via Cardiff.
Yeah, why not? Well, no, we're starting in Gloucester, so we'll go to Kemble first, I guess. We'll go. Are there any IFR waypoints? Let me see.
Wales and Southwest are now free routing areas, so very few. There's some low-level ones still.
Interesting. Right, well, we'll have a look then. Right, so here we are on the ground. We've got a OE Austrian registered DA62. So let's get it powered up first of all. And get some lights on in here. We got any overheads? There we go. Let's put some of them on so we can actually see what's going on. Right. So, getting in the airplane, fire it up, runs through its attitude and horizon reference system align. So this is a newer version of the G1000 than the one I used to fly, but it's still pretty much the same sort of thing. So, there we go. That means you piloted the channel from the founders. Hey, I'm one of the founders. It's fine. There we go. The other 2 have got proper jobs. They both fly for passenger airlines. Yeah. They're both very busy.
One of them got married.
One of them, one of them got married, which is the end of his life, definitely. And then yeah, so I'm now the only one with a large amount of spare time in my hands because my schedule is kind of very good. Right. So. Right, Rich, do you want to come up with some GPS waypoints for me for this, or even some airways if you've got any? In fact, hang on, Navigraph should come up with a route for this, shouldn't it?
Yes.
Let's have a look at Navigraph.
Yeah, but you've got to stop at Cardiff. Gloucester?
Gloucester, yeah. So, make a new flight.
N92 is right next to Gloucester. N92 south. You
Mm.
can get off that and go to Cardiff.
EG, BJ. So we'll start off. I'll tell you what. We'll just start off with flying to Cardiff, and then we'll go to Newquay.
Cardiff to Newquay is go where you like, basically.
Yeah.
Because the airways all end west of Dartmoor. No, east of Dartmoor even.
So we've got Gloucester. And we've got Cardiff. I don't know the LCO for Cardiff.
Hold on, I'm looking at the map.
CWL.
EG Echo Golf Foxtrot.
Got it. Right. And there we go. And if we hit auto route, so I'm doing this. I've just opened the Navigraph iPad app, which I'm afraid you guys can't see, but trust me on this, it's good. So it's made up a little IFR routing for us. So if we go IFR low, it should route us via some airways if there are any. Well, there aren't, but there is an IFR waypoint we can go by, and there are a few departures we can do as well. So let's have a look first of all at the weather, so we know what runway we're going to be departing from. There we go. So apparently no meter over. Are they closed? Yeah, of course, because it's 9:30 on a Sunday night. They're going to be closed, aren't they? Oh, it's not very helpful. So, where's the nearest place that's going to be open is my next question.
Bristol, possibly?
Bristol, yeah, probably. Although it's on the river,
Brighton.
so... Oh, Bryce, yeah, Bryce will be open. Because they'll be 24 hours, won't they? There we go, 220 at 7. Okay, cool. So, winds roughly from southwest. So, first thing we do is we go into the flight plan page here and we'll populate with the origin. Now, in real life, this will populate automatically with where you're starting off, but they haven't quite worked that out, how to do that in the simulator yet. So we've got to wind that in. So it's echo. And then I just miss all the letters.
And this is why I hate those bloody things.
Yeah, it's a lot easier in real life.
God's sake.
Bravo.
Keypad, for God's sake.
There we go. Gloucester. So then we pick a runway. So runway 22 is pretty much going to be exactly into wind, so we're going to take 22. En route, so our en route waypoint is called Wevby. So we're going to go via Wevby.
Where the hell is that?
Northwest of Gloucester. There we go. So we've got that in there. Now, one thing you can do is you can put an altitude in there, but I'm gonna leave it because we're probably not going to be able to go particularly high. Transition level around here is about 6,000 feet. So if we go up to about 7,000, we should be okay. And the destination is going to be Foxtrot, right?
Yes, that's Cardiff, and Newquay is Hotel Quebec.
Okay.
I can't see his waypoint. I wonder if your nav date is out of date.
Pretty sure it's not. I've updated it the other day. Cardiff, what's the weather at Cardiff? Let's have a look. Where do I press for that?
There's hardly any wind at Cardiff, apparently.
Epic. 260 at 7. So... So that's going to be... It's pretty much straight across the 2, isn't it? Let's go for just runway 30. Right, so that's a very basic IFR routing. Now, if I wanted an airway, I could select that waypoint there, hit menu, go to load airway, and then it will bring up all of the airways that intersect with that particular waypoint there. But because it's not apparently an airways waypoint, there aren't any. So unfortunately I can't demonstrate that, but you just select it from here. You'd select what airway you want, and then select the exit point of that particular airway, and it would populate it all for you. It's pretty straightforward once you get your head around it. It's quite good. I think this has VNAV. So yeah, it does have VNAV, yeah. You can tap the little icon next to it to enable keyboard tone. Right, okay, fair enough.
You see Duckno and Octad, they're on an airway, so... That'll be coming at Cardiff from the other way.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got the routing in. The next thing I would usually do is hit procedure, and we'll find a departure that makes sense. So let's see if runway 22's got any departures, because as far as what's going on here? Are there none? Apparently there are none. Well, that's not very helpful. It's a great job of illustrating my point there, not. Okay, well, I know that there's some approaches, so let's set up for an approach. Now, what kind of approach would you like me to do? Would you like me to demonstrate something fairly simple, aka an ILS, or do you want me to do something a little bit more left field, like an RNAV approach? See what chat wants. You got a preference, Tom, since this is your request?
SRA approach.
SRA, yeah. Imagine if the air traffic control was good enough to give you an SRA. We'll set up for a RNAV, Tom. If you want something different, let me know. Now, RNAV approaches are all set up via waypoints, so you can see the initial waypoints that you can come in from. Now, we're going to be coming in from the north, sort of north-east over here. So if we set up for IPTAT, that's probably the most efficient one. You can pre-populate the minimums. Given this is a short flight, that would probably make sense. RNAV maybe, yeah, sure. That's what we're setting up for. So the minimums for this one. So we've got LNAV, VNAV available on this aircraft. And that gives us a minimum of 470 feet. So we'll set that up. Bear in mind, so it sounds quite a lot, but LNAV, VNAV is not the most accurate form of RNAV approach that we've got available. Unfortunately, we don't have LPV available in this country anymore since we got booted out of the Galileo satellite system. So that's about as good as it gets, I'm afraid. So then what I'd usually do is kind of zoom out a little bit and then select the cursor and then just look at the different waypoints and make sure they all make sense. So there's WEV-B up there. And you can see IPTAT, LOLP, which is the intermediate fix, and then the final fix for the approach. And then down the approach, and then the missed approach procedure there. So what we'll do, we'll fly it down, we'll do a touch and go, we'll come round again, and then we'll head off towards Newquay, I guess. That should be a nice little flight for us. Right, come back there, and now I would do this from memory, but it's been a few months since I've flown anything like this, so let's just use the checklist. Fuel selectors, so fuel selectors down here, so they are both on. Alternators are both on, we always leave those on in these aircraft. Pitot heater is off, pitot heat's there. Engine masters are both off. Avionics master switch is off. Gear selectors down, flaps are selected up and indicating. All electrical equipment's off. Electric master is on. Fuel quantities checked. So how much fuel we got on board? We got half tanks. And do we have? Yeah, we got 9 gallons in the auxiliaries. So as soon as we fire up, we're going to start pumping the auxiliaries out into the main tanks. Because the way that these aeroplanes work is they have auxiliary tanks in the back of the engine nacelles. They don't feed directly into the engines, they feed into the wing tanks. So generally speaking, if you've got enough space to pump the aux tanks dry into the mains, then you'd do that, and you'd get rid of the auxiliaries into the main tanks as soon as possible. Electric master off, blah, 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 for control stick full and free travel. Yeah, it's all good. There we go. And you can actually, because it's sort of a semi-castering nose wheel, you can check the rudders while you're stationary on a 62 and a 42. Power levers. Oh, hang on. I've got to change my control configuration because I've got this set up for a single engine aeroplane, and that won't do. So I'll get some extra throttle levers. I think I've got a setup for the Bravo. Just bear with me. There we go. That's more like it. Right, okay. I think we're good to go. So power levers and idle, parking brake is set, avionics master's off, gear selector set down, alternators both on, fuel pumps left and right are both off, so they're both off on there, electric master is on. Make sure we've got some nav light on as well. There we go. Oh, hang on, maybe I've got to do it on here. Maybe not, maybe on here, there we go. I think that's... Is that you in a Vulcan, Rich?
That is.
Yeah, I can hear that sound from miles away. Is the G1000 available, aware available holdings? It should be. It should be. We'll have a look. We'll see if we can we'll do a go around and we'll see if we can stick it in the hold. DA42. No, it's the 62. It's the default 62 with the DA62X mod on it. So definitely recommend it. It's free. It's from flightsim.to. Just go check it out. Right. So starting engine, strobe lights. Not going to do this because you don't put your strobes on a taxiway unless you're very anti-social. Engine master on. So we always tend to start the left engine first, which is opposite of what you'd do with an airliner. But it's just because you've got a better view of the left-hand engine if anyone's stood around it. You can see if they are. So it'll go through a glow cycle. Glow cycle's fairly short because it's fairly warm today. So that's that. Left engine glow. So the left engine glow annunciator has gone off already. Then you just press the start button. It should fire into life. Now, normally what you'd do is you'd press the display back up and you'd get the systems page on this side. So you'd have the engine instruments. And then over here you'd have the system stuff. So you have this one on engine and this one on system. But unfortunately, I think this is a working title thing. You just can't have a split between the two. So let's just leave it on engine for now. Right, without further ado. Fire the engine up.
Is the G1000 aware of available holdings?
Yeah. I do believe it is, but we'll check that out. We'll try it out.
Pretty sure you can just put one in anywhere.
Yeah, you can put a holding anywhere, and that's the G1000. But I do believe if you go around, then if you activate the missed approach procedure, it will put a hold in automatically for you, and it will be the correct hold with the the right inbound and the right direction turns and all the rest of it. Right, so it looks like we're all good. That's a good start. So let's pop the master on for the number 2 engine now. Cancel that warning. Shut up. So there was your glow indication. So that's just the glow plugs. Slightly strange for a light aircraft, this one. I mean, it's really good, but it's slightly non-normal because it runs on jet fuel. And the engine is like a diesel engine from a road car, basically. So it's compression ignition. It uses glow plugs to heat the cylinders before the start. So let's fire it up. There we go. Oil pressure is up into the green. There's no fire seen. Starter annunciator's gone out. And then you check your volts and amps if you could get it to come up. There we go. Check the volts and amps and make sure that the alternator is working, which it does appear to be. So let's get rid of the display back up now and go back to there. Now, very helpfully, you can see that the system's brought up the taxi chart for Gloucester. Now we're going for runway 22, so it's that one there. I am vaguely aware of where to go, but it's always useful to have the chart available. Okay, so we've got 2 good engines. We can now turn on the avionics system on the aircraft. So if I can remember, yeah, there we go. I've got a button on here to do it. So that just fires up the radios, basically, and if you had a separate autopilot, it would fire up a separate autopilot for you. Don't know if I can change that to inches of mercury. That's going to make things interesting. Never mind. So the avionics mass is on. Power levers are below 50% because we're still warming things up. If we go over here, we can see coolant and oil temperature is still a little bit low, so we'll keep the powers low. Electrical equipment on as required. Yeah. There's nothing too much to turn on now. Flight instruments, avionics is required. Just make sure the altimeters are set. We're going to go to CDI onto GPS mode. Set our initial altitude. So let's go up to. No, what's the waypoint for this? So we've got to be at 2.5 at IPTAT. We'll not go too high. We'll go to 5,000. That should be enough. I'm just conscious we've got the Malvern Hills just slightly north of here, so. We want to make it over the top of those. Strobe lights we're not turning on. I refuse to do that. Position lights, landing and taxi lights is required. Trim, set takeoff position. And it is in the takeoff position. Just make sure my trim control is working. Maybe it isn't. Let me just check my control bindings. So I'm using my Warthog stick to control the airplane for maximum realism. There we go. Gotcha. Right. Okay. Taxi light on. trim set for takeoff. Oh, hang on, that's a button. There we go. Then we're ready to go, and then we just check the instruments as we go. And we also set the cross feeds on as well, just to make sure that they work. So normally you'd never operate both cross feeds at the same time. This is the only time you do it on the ground, when you just want to check if they're working or not. Right, let me just check what direction we're pointing. Of course, the wrong way. The good thing about the DA62 is, though, it's pretty agile, so I reckon we can get around this corner without too much trouble. Right, these taxiway markings are extremely confusing in the dark. I mean, they're not great in the day either, to be fair. So forgive my prodigious use of external camera, just so I can see where I'm going. Good luck up final approach, see if Rich is anywhere in his Vulcan. I can't see or hear him.
I put it down already.
Probably hear him before I see him.
Well, I'll make some noise, you can hear the direction. So.
I can hear that from quite a way away.
That's fine. Probably over the other end then.
So I'm just coming up to the, doing a horrible job of holding the taxiway centre line. Just coming up to the holding point for 2-2. So Echo, I think Foxtrot 2 is the last holding point.
Just to try something. I'm going to send you a group request before you take off.
Oh, okay. Okay, parking brake. Hang on. Can I accept that from in here? How do I do that?
Escape and
There we go. Accept.
at the top right.
Got it. Right, there we go. Right. If any of you have Microsoft Flight Sim and you want to come and fly with us in the... Oh, have you got daytime set? You've ruined it.
Sorry, yeah, hold on. I'll get it
We're all atmospheric and stuff. Before takeoff, parking brake set, longitudinal trim set for takeoff. Fuel selectors are now going on. Like that. Rudder trim in the middle. Some people like to have it a little bit to the right because the aircraft does have quite a big tendency to yaw to the left on takeoff, but I usually leave it in the middle and use rudder pressure. Flaps set for takeoff, so this is slightly different to the DA42 that you use flap for takeoff. Flight controls full and free, so we'll do another around the box. There we go, landing light, parking brake. Okay, so the thing it doesn't say is to do the ECU engine test, but I'll just do that from memory. In fact, can you do it both at the same time? I'm sure there used to be a way to do them both at the same time. That's usually what you do in real life, but never mind, we'll just do them one at a time. So the engine tests that you'd normally sort of do all manually, because this is a very space-age aeroplane, it does it all automatically, so it revs the engines up, cycles the prop, and cycles between the two completely separate engine control units to make sure everything's working as it should be. Which is all very space-age and clever, which is kind of what the DA42, or DA62 rather, is all about. Very high-tech engine for a light aircraft. Normally you'd do both of these together, like I said, but there will be a click spot somewhere that you press to get them to do it at the same time. There is on the 42, which, like I said, is made by the same guy. There we go. And then we just manually select the ECUs between A and B. Make sure we don't get a significant change in RPM. Diamond uses Mercedes-Benz engines, but yes, they do. They're modified. They're called Ostro engines, but the basic architecture is, yes, it's a Mercedes-Benz car engine. So let's have runway heading, which is 215. There we go. So let's get the fuel pumps on. And we'll have the landings and the strobes and the pitot heater. Do we have a pitot heater? But there we go. Right, and that should be that. Should be good to go. So, release parking brake, stall heat fail. That's normal on the ground. It's operated by the weight on wheels switch. Let's go across to the moving map. On that. We'll have some wind, yeah, option 1, and we'll have a DME as well. Oh, have I gone the wrong way? I might have gone the wrong way. I think I'm going to the bloody aviation museum down here. Right. Quick U-E. Bit too zealous there. Hey, give me a break. It's night time. And I'm at an airfield I'm not mega familiar with. I don't think the representation is particularly great in Microsoft Flight Sim either. It's a little bit odd. Alright, so if we go down here, this should be the runway. Should be.
Can you not get charts up on the G1000?
Yeah, you can, but it's yeah, we're where we need to be. Right, let's ramp it up to 40%. Check T's and P's, no captions. Apart from the stall heat fail. Wind straight down the slot, full power set. 80 knots, rotates. Positive climb, gears coming up. Pitch to about sort of 10 degrees initially. It's passing about 400 feet. We'll start the turn en route. So, as opposed to flying the Tiger Moth previously, flying IFR is all about keeping your head inside the aeroplane and looking at the instrumentation and using as much of the aircraft systems to help you as possible. So when you're single pilot IFR, you tend to use a lot of autopilot and stuff like that. Right, passing 1,000 feet above ground level, let's get the flaps away and reduce to climb power, which is 93, I believe. Quite a lot of wind from the left. You can see we're getting 23 knots of crosswind and 21 knots of headwind. That's what that little cross symbol down there is telling us. The DA20s don't. Ah, okay, so the engine, yeah, the DA20 has an avgas engine, doesn't it? Generally, if it ends in 0, it's traditional engines, while the 2s have the diesels. Apart from the DA50, because that's got a jet burner, hasn't it? Well, that's a really cool engine. That's a 6-cylinder opposed jet fuel burning engine. I think it's Continental that make that. Anyway. Right, so we'll get rid of the taxi lights and the landing lights. Continue climbing. About 100 knots is a useful climb speed for this aeroplane. You can see we're getting over 1,000 feet a minute, which is pretty good. And I said I was going to try and pump those aux tanks out, didn't I? So I should probably start doing that. I could just go direct to enter, get us on the correct path. We're not actually on an airway or anything like that, so there's no reason for us to maintain that initial track that we'd planned for. little bit more nose up. 1,000 to go. It's got a flight path vector thing here, which is very fancy for a light aircraft. The version of 737 that I'm flying at the moment doesn't even have that.
Where was your initial waypoint?
WEVB, Whiskey Echo Victor Bravo Echo. And fuel pumps can go off as well. Right, let's level off. Now the good thing about these engines is you can pretty much run them all day at max power, so that's what we're going to do. 93 is your max continuous power setting, so we'll see what kind of speed she feels like doing. It's usually about 170 knots, true. Maybe a little bit less at this altitude, actually, maybe more like 160, 150, something like that, but see what it gives us. We're doing 160 at the moment. So yeah, we might get 170 out of it. This sort of speed always used to shock people the first time they got in the DA42, certainly. Coming out of a light aircraft. Like a lot of people used to do the multi-engine ratings coming out of the PPL once they'd done their hour building. So suddenly being in an aeroplane that can do 170 knots when you're used to flying around doing 90 knots is a bit of a shocker. But then again, I looked down at the ground speed that we were doing in the 737 the other day, and I saw almost 500 knots, and I was like, ah. Puts things into perspective a little bit. Currently flying the DA20 for training. They're very peculiar about their cooling. Oh, very cool. They always struck me as really good little training aeroplanes, so I hope you're enjoying that. I think are they oh, what's the name? Forget the name of it, but it's the... Oh no, because they're water-cooled, aren't they? I don't know. Can't remember the name of it. I think they're an air-cooled engine, aren't they, on the DA20? I mean, you'd probably know better than I would. But, yeah. Cool little aeroplane. You're very lucky. Most PPL students start off on something that's about twice the age of their own parents, so... Enjoy it. I'm going to pop the autopilot in quickly so I can do a little bit of flight management.
Engaging autopilot.
Thank you, Mr. Text-to-Speech voice. I'm going to go nav. All they're good for is a low operating cost and they're air-cooled. Ah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So you'd prefer a Piper or something like that then? So the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it? So we've got 22 miles and we're doing a ground speed of 148 knots. That shouldn't take us too long at all. In fact, we've got estimated time en route of just over 8 minutes. So not got a great deal of time to think about what we're going to do when we're on the way in here. So first of all, let's see if we've got... yeah, so we've got the altitude set up here. So that's not exactly right, is it? But it should give us a VNAV profile to these, so it should give us a top of descent. In fact, it has done there, look. So it's planned the descent. A little bit strange for a light aircraft, but the diamonds are actually very slippery, a bit like a jet, really. So descent planning is quite important. So thankfully the G1000 has done that for us based on our ground speed and all the rest of it. It will update once we're actually on this leg. It'll update based on what the actual winds we're getting and things like that, so it'll make it a little bit more accurate. But it takes a bit of the effort out of planning the descent there, or rather it takes all the effort out of planning the descent. So that's in there. Now let me see what else we can do here. So if we go to procedure, we've got the approach in there. So is it going to give us a chart, I wonder? Oh, look at that. Very cool. So we can do an IFR low-level chart. Look at that. That's awesome. So I'm assuming that it's pulling this data out of straight out of Navigraph. So we've actually got a low-level IFR chart there. But what I'm interested in is it going to give us... Ah, there we go. Okay, so it's giving us Cardiff, RMP runway 30. Ah, look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. Love it. Now, does it allow us to move around? It does, so we can scroll around using the... Because this is a little joystick, so you can move around there. See any of the pertinent data? Give yourself a little briefing. So let's set up ready for the approach then. So normally what we do is we'd get the weather. First things first, but let's assume the weather's already on board because I can just look at it on our phone app. We'd set all the radios ready to go, assuming we're going to get thrown onto Cardiff approach fairly soon. Final approach course is 297, so we can't set that up just yet, but the great thing about the G1000 is that it should do it for us, so fingers crossed. And we've got an altitude check of 1600 feet at Fox 30 Foxtrot. So that's our integrity check for our little mock glide slope or GPS glide path. LNAV, VNAV min is 470, we've already set that. We've got an airport elevation of 220 feet, so we've got to consider that when we're thinking about our acceleration altitude if we go around. The missed approach is climb to 3000, straight ahead. Fox Mike 04, and then turn right to Fox Mike 05, and then blah 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 blah. What we'd usually do is we'd go onto the flight plan and we'd make sure that that's in. So scroll through, and there it is. Look, so we can see the missed approach procedure is in the box, and it makes sense with reference to the chart. So let's go back to the chart, then back to the locator to hold at 3000. Now the question from earlier about the hold. So if we go back onto here, it should have the hold all ready to go. There we go. That's the hold. So it's already planned the hold ready for our missed approach, or in case we need the missed approach. But we are going to fly the missed approach, so we're going to be able to take the aircraft into the hold. So very, very clever, takes all the effort out. And honestly, that's more than what you'd get in the 737, certainly. The 737 would give you this part, but if you actually wanted the hold, you'd have to put that in manually. You'd have to ask it to hold there for you. So, yeah, very cool. Right, let me catch up on chat. Thanks again for taking a request and joining the stream. Ah, no problem. I'm only 17, instrument student now. Oh, cool. Well, good luck. Best of luck with everything. You're at the start of a longer journey, I'm not going to lie, but it's very rewarding. I think it's definitely the best career in the world, so good luck. Cessna's great, especially for IMC training. DA-20s aren't rated for it, so I'm only limited to Foggles only. Ah, okay. How would you plan the descent on more traditional GA? Right, okay, so more traditional GA, depending on your performance of your aeroplane, you'd either use... oh, our fuel pumps are empty. Our fuel tanks are empty, sorry, so I'll turn the pumps off. You would use either 3 miles for every 1,000 feet you need to drop, or 5 miles for every 1,000 feet you need to drop, and then work it backwards. So you do a little bit of basic maths and work out a top of descent point based on your ground speed. And then you'd think of, based on your ground speed, how long it's going to take to cover the distance, and then work out a rough rate of descent. So it requires about 5 minutes and a pocket calculator on your phone. It's not mega difficult, but that's how you do it, more sort of old school. But the great thing about the G1000, like I said, is it does it all for you. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Oh, frequencies. That's something... Well, it does do this for you, I think. So let me double check. Go back to the chart. So we've got... oh, it's on. We don't need any frequencies because it's on now, isn't it? We can set that up on the NDB, though, just as a bit of a situational awareness aid. So 388.5, we can go to ADF DME, and...
You might also tune Bracken 4 up as well. It's right next door.
Yeah.
That is 11745.
I'll have that in there. 11745. I'll have it on nav 2. And what we will do is we will have some bearing needles. So we'll have bearing 1 pointing at the ADF and bearing 2 pointing at nav 2. So that will give us a rough idea about where we are, which is always a useful thing to know. Right, I usually did the 500 feet per minute at a time and use the the GS to calculate the distance. Yeah, I mean, you can, whatever works for you, basically. You generally find 3 miles every 1,000 feet. That's kind of how airliners will do it, very roughly, just to use a 3 times table, because airline pilots are all thick and we can't do basic maths. But yeah, if you've got a method that works, then go for it. Tiger Moth G1000. Yeah, that would be pretty cursed, wouldn't it? Don't think it would fit in the
How would you even power it?
Yeah, good question.
There's so much power.
Good question. You could put a solar panel on top of the wing, maybe, or something like that.
Yes.
Let's see. It's a pretty dark night, isn't it? I can see the stars, so fortunately we're not in cloud. Maybe these lights are working against us a little bit now. Normally, what you wouldn't have lights on in the cockpit, just because it wrecks your ability to see outside. See if we can dim that off a bit. There we go. I still can't see anything. Well, it's out there somewhere. Tom, you wanted the Cotswolds. Yeah, we're sort of seeing them. We can see them on the synthetic vision. Right, we're going around the corner.
I mean, this is Wales.
Yeah, South Wales as well. I've got some traffic. Now, is that a player or is that an AI?
Possibly me, if I'm above you quite a lot.
You're above me and heading south.
Behind. No, that's not me then.
Oh, that might be you. 3,100 feet above and following the same flight path.
Yes.
Ah, we go. You're on the TCAS. Right.
It actually works this time.
Yeah, imagine that. Something cozy about night flights. Yeah, there is. Of course, the problem is you don't want it to be too cozy, otherwise you fall asleep. And that's a big no-no when you're flying in the early hours of the morning. In fact, one of the sort of biggest challenges that we have at the place where I operate is most cargo flights go at night. So we sort of get going sort of 6, 7 p.m. and fly all the way through the evening, and we finish at about 6 o'clock in the morning. So you go right through what's called the window of circadian low, the WOCL, you hear people refer to it as. And it's basically the time that the human body is wants to sleep, basically. Regardless of how much sleep you've had, the human body is sort of evolutionarily set up to fall asleep at that time. So it's a bit of a threat. The last flight of the evening is always the one where you're sort of thinking, you know, let's take it easy, let's be cautious, let's keep a very close eye on each other. The pilot monitoring, whoever the pilot monitoring is on the last flight, it's a big task, because you've got to be monitoring the other guy's actions very, very closely, and obviously making sure your own attention levels are kept nice and high. I usually find drinking copious amounts of coffee and eating sugary things to be the best way through that one. Thankfully, most of you will end up flying only most of the time in the daytime anyway. Great application for AI, buzzing the asleep pilots back into service. Yeah, absolutely. Give us a stick shaker or something to wake us up if it senses we fall asleep. I'll take that. Or like connect the 115 volt to the pilot's inside trouser leg or something like that. Right. So let's do a quick Frida check. So fuel, we've got just under 20 gallons in each side.
Do you want to explain the acronym for people, because that might be interesting.
Okay, so Frida is your default sort of periodic check that you do in a light aircraft. So F is for fuel. So you always start out with looking at your fuel and thinking of it in terms of endurance. So we've got just under 40 gallons. The aircraft burns about sort of 12 gallons an hour. So if we sort of do a bunch of really sort of basic maths, we've got just over 3 hours. So we'll say 3 hours for safety margin, and we'll work to that. We know that our flight is only going to be another 13 minutes long, although we are going to be doing a little bit more than that. So let's say our flight's going to be sort of 30 minutes long. So more than enough fuel. We've got 3 hours of spare fuel to sit in the hold or divert or do anything we want there. R is our radios, so not just comms but NAVs as well. So we'd have this set up for Cardiff approach, and on standby we'd probably have the tower. Com 2 we'd have, now you probably want, when you're flying IFR, you'd want guard set up on one of these. Now guard is 121.5, it's the international emergency frequency. Now what that does for you is that if you have a failure on your COM1 radio, so normally you're talking on COM1 to, it would be probably Western Radar flying out here. So if your COM1 radio fails and Western Radar are trying to get in touch with you and they're saying whatever the call sign is, Oscar Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Zulu, please come in, blah blah blah, whatever, and they can't reach you because your radio's failed, what they will probably do next is try to call you on guard. So if you've always got a listening watch out on guard, then you're ready to catch that if you have a failure of your number one comm radios. That's why generally policy is to run guard on box 2. Your standby frequency on here is your ATIS. So what you'd usually do is you flip over there, you listen to your ATIS, and then once you're done you flip back to guard. Now what some pilots like to do on guard is make meowing cat noises, which believe me is nothing to do with me. I know I like cats and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't start the trend. It's been going for a long time. Just to wind people up basically, so that's a fun little pilot fact for you. So yeah, so that's your comm radios. Your nav radios, so you'd set them up exactly how I just set them up when we're thinking about the approach. So you'd put any nav aids required on here for the approach. You might want for some kind of reversion, you might want the ILS frequency in here. So runway 30 has got an ILS, so we can put 110.7 in there. Just in case, for example, you lose GPS signal and you want to revert back to an ILS approach, you can throw that in there ready to go. And we've already set up the Brecon VOR, as Rich was telling us. It's not that far away. It's good for situational awareness. We've got the NDB set up as well, which is called Charlie Delta Foxtrot. Now, what you can see on these boxes up here, you can see it's identing. So we've got Bravo Charlie November for the Brecon VOR up here. So we don't actually need to listen to the Morse code ident for that. However, the DA42 doesn't, or DA62, sorry, G1000 setup doesn't have a text ident for the DME or for the NDB or the ADF, sorry. So you'd have to listen to the audios for both of those. So you'd turn this on, and then hopefully it would give you some Morse code in your ear. I don't know if we're going to hear that because it tends to be quite quiet. Maybe, maybe not. So that's that, and then DME you'd hit there, and then hope that it makes some kind of noise. But I mean, we're not really in range. The ILS DMEs are weird. They only kind of work when you're in line with the runway, so it's not unusual to be not able to pick up an ident from that just yet. As you can see, we're not getting an ident on the nav radio either, so I wouldn't really expect one from the DME. So that's your radio. E is for engine, so it's a quick look down your T's and P's, make sure everything's nice and healthy. Now there's a few extra things on the 42 and 62 to look out for when you're thinking of you're free to check and looking at your engine systems. It's not just your temperatures and pressures, but it's also things like your anti-icing. Now the anti-icing on the DA42 and 62 works by what's called a weeping wing. So you have a bunch of wing panels. I don't know if I can if I stick the wing lights on. Might be able to see out, well, sort of. You see this leading edge like grey line here. So this is a metal, bare metal panel that's perforated by thousands and thousands of tiny holes. And the wing basically slowly leaks anti-icing fluid out of it based on a system of pumps. So you have a big tank in the nose, and it leaks, it pumps fluid out over the wings. It leaks over the wings, and it keeps the wings clear. Now, it's supposed to be an anti-icing system, not a de-icing system. So you're supposed to use it to prevent the buildup of ice, not to get rid of ice that's already formed. So as soon as you fly into a cloud, so if you fly into a cloud, the ambient air temperature is below about 4 degrees, you want the anti-icing system turned on. Now the problem with that type of anti-icing system is it's got a finite amount of use. You can only use it when the tank is full, which it isn't, by the way. When the tank's full, you've only got 2.5 hours worth of usage on the normal setting. Now if you have to use the high setting or the max setting, it goes down to an hour or 30 minutes respectively. So you've got to sort of plan your flight around the amount of anti-icing that you're going to need to use. If you're planning to have to use anti-icing for the entirety of the flight, then your flight can't be any longer than 2.5 hours, or rather 2 hours really, because you always want a little bit of safety margin built in. So that's an interesting little thing about the 42 and the 62 that you need to take into account. D is DI. So on a traditional aircraft, you'd align your gyroscopic directional indicator with your magnetic compass. Compass on the 62 is, there we go, it's up there. So you'd look up at that, you'd make sure that that was behaving itself. Now, this is all based on some very sensitive magnetometers, air data computer, not air data computer, but the attitude and horizon reference system, and inertial gyros and all sorts of different, like solid state gyros and things like that. So it's generally a lot more accurate than this old-fashioned thing up here. So the two won't generally agree with each other too closely. They're not going to be within a degree, but they should be sort of roughly the same. What it's also a hint to do is to set your CDI to the correct mode. So at the moment we've got GPS selected on here, and we're going to be doing an RNAV approach, so it needs to stay in GPS. But if we were on radar vectors being vectored towards the ILS, we could flip this over to the green navigation needle, ready for intercepting the ILS localizer. And A is your altimeters, so it's to make sure your altimeters are all set. We're not on standard because we're not above the transition level. Transition level in the UK is a lot lower than for you guys in the US. So you guys in the US, it's just 18,000 feet wherever you are. In the UK, it varies, but it's usually between 5,000 and 7,000 feet. Depends on the airfield and depends on the atmospheric conditions of the day. But if we were above the transition level and we were operating on standard, I'd always have the standby altimeter on the QNH that I'd listen to on the ATIS, so that I could check when the controller told me to descend to an altitude and told me the QNH, I could then check that against what I'd got set on here, because believe it or not, air traffic controllers do get it wrong sometimes. And in fact, not that long ago in Paris, I think it was an Air Baltic A220 almost managed to land on the Paris rooftops because they had the wrong QNH set for flying an RNAV approach. So really, really important that you make sure that your altimeters are set correctly, especially when you're doing RNAV or any kind of non-precision approach. Will we use the VNAV button? Yeah, we'll use the VNAV button when we get to the top of descent point, and I'll show you how that works. Hopefully it will work. And we can also use the VNAV, well, essentially using the VNAV mode in approach. So it should give us a vertical glide slope on the RNAV approach. So the autopilot should be able to fly down that as well. Won't do it too much because I'm sure you want to see me cock up the approach and make a really bad job of it. But we'll at least show you that the aircraft is capable of doing it. Right, so we can see the lights of Cardiff coming up ahead of us in the distance. This sim does look brilliant at night. Really, really good. You can see the lights of the city lighting up the underside of the clouds here. I posted a picture in our Discord the other day. We were flying over, I think it was Manchester, and there was a solid cloud layer, but the lights of Manchester underneath were lighting up the cloud layer and making it glow, so it kind of looked like some sort of weird alien invasion. It was very, very cool effect, and you get that in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so it's very, very cool to see. Alright, not long now to go to top of descent. So our top drop for the approach is, there we go, there's the vertical track coming in. Now what it should do is give us a little mock glide slope here on the PFD, and it isn't doing. So something there to add, maybe a little bug or something, but that's what the real aeroplane would do. If we hit VNAV now and wind the altitude down to, what is it, 2,000 feet. So it should come down when we hit the TOD, but we'll see. Obviously, the important thing here, yes, you've got a pretty capable autopilot, but you don't have an auto throttle. So I always told my students to keep their hand on the throttle levers during a climb or a descent on the autopilot, because they've got to remember that you have to do something with the throttle. Okay, there we go. VNAV path's armed, and now it's giving us the indicator here. So this would come up as soon as you hear that audio cue, vertical path. This little display here would come up with the little purple magenta carrot all the way up the top, and then it would slowly come down to meet you, so you'd know when you were going to actually start your descent. Now, effectively what it's doing here is descending in VS mode. So the important thing for us is to make sure we don't get too fast. We're already in the yellow, but that's fine. We're in smooth air. But we need to set a throttle setting to maintain a sensible cruise descent. Now, going into cloud here, what's our outside air temperature? Our outside air temperature is 9 degrees, so it's nice and warm. Don't need the anti-icing on. We've got the piezo heater on, so any moisture or anything like that should burn straight out. So what I always use as a little check for flying an approach is ABC. So A stands for aids and ATIS, so you'd make sure all your nav aids were tuned and set up. It's a GPS approach, so we don't need to, but we've already briefed from the plate to the MFD and made sure we've got the correct routing in here. So that's our aids check. B is your briefing, so we've kind of already done the briefing. So you'd make sure you'd briefed yourself. It's not like a multi-pilot briefing. We'd do something quite different in a multi-pilot cockpit, but you're basically just talking yourself through how you're going to fly it and what you should be looking out for, so that none of it comes as a surprise. And C is your checklist. So you'd carry out your pre-approach checklist. So let's do that, shall we? So let's do descent first of all. Power levers as required, checked. Airspeeds as required, that's checked. And trim as required, that's fine. Landing light is required. So let's get the, we'll go landing light on now for conspicuity, and we'll use the taxi light as the indication that we've been cleared either to land or for a low approach. Fuel selector check both on. They are both on. Fuel pump left and right. Let's go on with the auxiliary fuel pumps. Landing gear, not just yet. We'll defer that. Parking brake is released. Yep. Trim is required. Yeah, it's fine. We're in autopilot. And we're below 1999, so 1999. So minimum 88 knots with flaps at takeoff. So that's fine. Flaps required, power levers required, trim as required, and then 84 knots with flaps to landing. So there we go. That's one to go. And that's our initial point. So we pass IPTAT at 2,500 feet, and then we get a LOLP at 2,000. So I'm going to keep this coming down to 2,000. Well, it's already on 2,000. So it's timed the descent perfectly. So we cross this waypoint at 2.5, and then as soon as we cross that waypoint, it'll start descending again to 2,000 for the next waypoint. Now, it's leveled off a little bit, but that's fine. We can just allow it to drop a little bit of speed because we're going to want the speed to come back more towards about 120 knots for the initial stages of the approach. Like I said, it's quite a slippy aeroplane, so energy management's pretty important. So speed's coming back nicely now. So it's 2000 at lol p, and then 1600 at the final fix. So making the turn now, so let's wind down the altitude to 1600. It should take us down the rest of the way. Turning onto the final approach track now. Let's follow it up with the heading bug. Always important to keep your heading bug synced up to your aircraft's actual direction, because at any point air traffic could just ask you to maintain your current heading or something like that, and if your heading bug's not in the right place, you'd be in a bit of bother. I know some military guys do that. Oh, you mean the meowing on guard? Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, that's just the Air Force, isn't it?
They're just practicing for later in life.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're within half scale deflection now. Within 90 degrees of the final approach track. And let's assume we have been cleared for the approach, so I'm going to hit approach mode. Which is going to arm the approach. So you can see GP glide path has been armed. Got a fairly strong crosswind from the left, so I'm going to anticipate that we're going to need about that on the heading. The great thing is about the G1000 is if you click the heading knob, it will always sync up to what your heading currently is, which is a feature which I think every single airplane needs. Definitely the 737. Spend your entire life spinning the heading bug around. So speed's come down a little bit too far, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of power back in. We kind of want to maintain 120 right until we actually commence the descent, at which point we'll slow down to about 100 knots. Really starting to wish the Belanca's autopilot works right. It seems to solve so much of the task saturation problems I face with it. Is that in Flight Simulator, or is that something you fly in real life? But yeah, single pilot IFR. Mega high workload. So any automation you can bring on board is going to massively help you out. So there's glide path intercept. It's actually doing a continuous descent. It's doing a CDA. So very impressive job it's doing at the moment. This is normally what airline pilots aim to do. We aim to avoid any kind of level segments in the approach, and it's done that absolutely brilliantly. It's planned that really fantastic. So we're just passing the final fix now, 1600 feet. We're coming down, so let's go speed below 194, gear select down. And speed below 136, flaps to take off. And indicating gear down 3 green. And shouldn't really need to move the power setting much at all. It should level itself out at about 100 knots. Flight sim, the Blanca Super Viking. I know someone who's got one in real life and it works fine. Ah, okay. Yeah, a lot of avionics niggles and things in Flight Simulator. I think there's still quite a long way to go. Hopefully they're going to keep working on it. Alright, so you can see the autopilot's very competent. Now, let me show you some incompetence, because I'm now going to take over. And as soon as I do that, it starts getting rough. Serves me right. So the 62 and the 42 are both very nice, stable airplanes. So they're really good training aircraft for students doing their instrument rating stuff. They're also quite sensitive on the controls as well, so you can make nice little measured corrections, which is really good. Getting in the habit of doing that, which you can do in a big airplane as well. You can do that in an airliner. Most of the time, when it starts getting rough, you have to start getting a bit aggressive on the controls, and mostly because you don't get any deflection of the roll spoilers until you've passed 10 degrees of control wheel deflection. That's 4 white lights correcting. So you have to sort of be a little bit rougher with the controls than you normally would be with a light aircraft. But most of the times, if it's fairly smooth, you can fly. Certainly, you fly a 737 with your fingertips most of the time, especially the 400, the 400s. Lovely.
Should get a nice lot of winter off the cliff any second.
Yeah, I'm getting bashed around quite nicely.
500.
Check. Well, below minimums now, but obviously been visual for quite a long time. So we'll do a touch and go. We'll fly the missed approach and see if she'll stick us in the hold, and then we'll carry on southbound. Okay, the props go into disc mode now, so the drag of the aircraft increases significantly when that happens. Just realised I've not got landing flap in. That's probably going to help with the drag too. There we go. Right, flaps coming back to takeoff. And full power coming in. Lots of right rudder. Come on, there's a centre line somewhere. There we go. A little bit scruffy. But I'll take it. Positive climb. Gears coming up. So, on the missed approach, what you need to do to sort of prompt the G1000 into giving you the guidance is to hit the suspend soft key down here. And then you just follow the purple line. One thing I did forget to do is set missed approach altitude, so that's something you're supposed to always remember. But
is that not part of a finals mnemonic?
Missed approach altitude. It's normally what we do is we do it as part of the 1,000-foot call on the radio altitude. So passing 1,000 foot, you check your minimums, you check what kind of landing you're going to do, and you check your missed approach altitude. But yeah, so I always used to get people to do it as soon as they got glide path or started intercepting the glide path. Just wind the missed approach altitude on. But like I said, it's been a while since I've done this in real life, so that's my excuse anyway. Right, let's get the power back to max continuous. Do the after takeoff checks, so fuel pumps can go. Land, taxi light can come off, and landing light can stay on for conspicuity. Let's get some nav guidance and get the AP back in. And let's go flight level change. Alt acquire. And once we level off, I'll pull the power back to keep her at, I'll go for about 60%. Should keep us about 120, which is a good hold speed. Good general purpose speed in this aircraft. Watch the rest tomorrow on the VOD. Thanks for a great stream and all the interesting info. See you again soon. Yeah, thanks for watching, Tom. You think we'll see any bush flying on the channel? Yeah, I'm up for anything. I've not done any bush flying in real life, so don't expect any kind of expert info, but I'm always up for giving it a go.
Obviously, you haven't been to the wilder bits of Yorkshire yet.
True. Bush flying in Yorkshire.
Aye.
Right, so once we've done this, where did we say we were going to go? Newquay.
Newquay.
Right. So let's assume we're doing this as a diversion. So let's say we've tried to get into Cardiff and weather's below minimum. We've tried to shoot an approach. We've sort of thought to ourselves, we've had a look at the weather and thought, this isn't going to get any better anytime soon. And we've decided Newquay is our best option for a diversion. So first things first, we're looking at our endurance and how long it's going to take us to get over there. So if we pop it in the box, we should get at least an idea of how long that should take. So, right, can I trouble you for an IKO, Rich?
Hotel Quebec.
I might have to change it. Let's hold on for a second, because it's going to... I want to see if it flies this missed approach properly and goes into the hold, but I'll tell you what, I can do it on Navigraph, can't I?
You can pick the boring. It's like there's 1 knot of wind there, so you can have the boring approach or the one with the DME arc on the way in.
You and your DME arcs, honestly.
I know. I just like persuading people to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's have a look at the diversion first of all. So let's throw Cardiff in there. I believe it's NQY for Newquay. There
Yes.
we go.
347.
Right. So, is there any way to look at route data here? Let me see.
You struggle to find it.
89 miles, cool. So, we're going to be going about 3 miles a minute. So that makes it fairly straightforward. Because it's just 30 minutes. 30 minutes of fuel is going to be 6 gallons. We've got way, way more than that. So, almost don't even need to think about it. But we're going to have 2.5 hours worth of fuel there or thereabouts once we get over the top. So still going to have loads of options when we get to Newquay. So that's that planned out. In terms of what approach we're going to do, I mean, we'd be picking up the weather and that sort of stuff for it, but let's have a look.
It's basically no wind, it says, so pick one. I would do ILS 30.
Okay.
It's like 1 knot tailwind or something.
Well, we could accept up to a 10 knot tailwind in a DA62,
Yes.
so that's fine.
I'm sure it's not going to be a problem.
I'm going to head off as well. Thanks for the interesting stream to watch while studying. Hey, no problem. Good luck with your studies.
You could do Cat 3, except you.
Except we definitely couldn't do Cat 3 in this aircraft. Yeah. Okay, cool. So there's a bit of a funky little DME arc coming in. So we could give that a go, couldn't we? We're going to be coming from that sort of direction from Exmoor.
Exmoor.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, which is a bit of a south leg, but it's not that much further.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Right, well, we'll do that once we've just checked that it does the hold. Bump the speed up a little bit. Like I said, normally we do 120 knots around the hole, just makes all the maths easier and stuff like that. But given that the autopilot's flying it and it's doing all the maths for me, I think I can get away with going a little bit faster. So you can see that it has planned the hold entry, so this is looking promising. So it's doing a teardrop or an offset entry into the hold, so it's going to cross the beacon, go outbound on a 30 degree deflected track from the inbound in the opposite direction, then make a turn in hold direction onto the inbound, and then round onto the hold. So hopefully it should fly that very nice and accurately for us. So the G1000 here is the working title one, so that's the one that's coming up with all the clever avionics stuff, so can give them a pat on the head if this works properly. Let's have a look outside. Ooh. I think that's St. Athan right there.
Just to the west, yeah.
One of the big threats of flying into Cardiff VFR is that you mix that place up with Cardiff and you land there accidentally, which is embarrassing, at least, I think.
And our runway is east-west as well, so
It is, yeah.
every time somebody takes off east, they're straight over Cardiff. So, is it in the hold?
It's, well, we're almost there. It's about to go over the beacon. Can see the blue bearing needle there is lined up perfectly with our track. So that's showing maintaining a constant bearing to the beacon. So it should flip, and then there we go. It's flipped around, and now it's flying the hold entry. Ooh, look at this.
And it's showing me on TCAS as well.
All right, was that you there with the
I've
2,000
been
feet
up in the
above?
hold for like 15
Ah.
minutes, so. Hopefully a bit higher up than you are.
Saying plus 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see Cardiff hold. We've got enunciated on the magenta at the top of the FMA. Flight mode enunciator at the top of the panel here. Sorry to say this after we've had two that you hate. Don't worry about it. I've got to coast away. I enjoyed listening. I think I've learned quite a few things from being here and interacting. Have a wonderful night. Thanks, mate. You too. Take care. Hopefully see you next time. Dropping like flies. So you can see it's drawn the path over the ground of the GPS, and it's just going to basically follow this course perfectly around.
There we go. Yeah.
So there you go. That's a hold. It's put it in automatically. It's flying it automatically. I've not had to enter that manually at all. It's set it all up for us. So there you go. Working title G1000. Does exactly what it says on the tin. That's exactly what it's supposed to do, coming off the missed approach from an RNAV approach. So, well done, working title. Now, what we need to do now is do our diversion. So, let's first of all clear some of these out.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure how you're actually supposed to do this, though.
Yeah, so what I'd normally do is just delete the whole thing.
Ah, fair enough.
And start
Just
again.
delete the destination.
Yeah, just bang everything out
Fair enough.
and start again.
Okay, that's pretty much what I'd do. So, good.
If it'll let me do it. Will it let me do it? Apparently not.
Can you insert after?
Yeah, that's strange. So what I'd do in real life is I'd just highlight that, pull it out, and then throw a new one in. But
Can you overwrite it?
no. Okay, let's just put a direct 2 in. So let's just do a direct 2 export and try and take it from there.
Okay, so you could start a new plan completely.
Yeah. Export, there we go. Enter. United Kingdom, activate, there we go. So that's taken us to Exmoor now. So now will it let us change anything? Apparently not. Maybe if we load an approach. Ah, okay, so it lets us change this. So I might be able to force it to change destination this way. So we want Echo Golf Hotel Quebec.
Affirmative.
Why is that coming up as St. Morgan?
Because it's also St. Morgan.
Yeah, but it's not been that for a long time, has it?
No, it's still there. It's
Is
just not used for much.
Okay.
These days, but there's still a bit of an RF.
So we're doing 3-0.
I mean, they can't let the Navy have the entire southwest.
Okay, fair enough. I'll tell you what, I'll set it up via vectors, because then we can do the DME arc, can't we?
Yep.
Minimums are going to be 585. So 590. Frequencies in there, and let's load that one up. Okay, cool. So let's give it some beans. So just bombing it across the Bristol Channel now. 3,000 feet at night probably would be marginally messing myself. Yeah, it's fine. We got 2 engines.
It's 3,500. Well, I mean, there's Exmoor as well, so that's the initially Exmoor, not the waypoint.
Yeah, let's. I'll tell you what. We'll go up a little bit. Flight level change. We'll do a cruise climb about 140 knots.
You can't do a route offset in a 750, can you?
No.
There.
I wouldn't know how to do a route offset in any Garmin product,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. Let's see what we can see outside. Not an awful lot.
Well, there's nothing there. You might be able to see mine now, just about.
Sky looks nice, at least.
You might see my strobes just about as well, somewhere.
Whereabouts are you? I'm trying to look for you on
To your
TCAS.
right. To your right, I think. I went in a hole over actually, so I'm just coming around the top of it.
I think we might be in cloud.
stars above me.
There's no stars above me, so I think I might have gone into a cloud now. Oh, there we go. Back out again. Right, so we're coming up to Exmoor in 3.2 miles, which is where it ends. So the aeroplane's going to do something. Well, it should just default into heading mode, but I don't massively trust it. So I'm going to sync the heading log up now. Just go into heading. So hopefully we're getting a DME, which we aren't. So
I mean, you could put the Newquay NDB in as a waypoint.
Yes.
That'll at least give you a direction. It's 76 miles.
It's 347.
Yeah, I don't mean... I don't think you're going to get a radio signal from an NDB that quite that far away. But just add it as a waypoint, surely.
Yeah. But, well, I don't know how this is going to work if we can't get a radial off the, or rather a DME distance off the ILS.
Well, you'll get it closer, won't you? It's 70 odd miles away. So.
Yeah. So if just switch the CDI over to that, and we'll have it on 302 for the approach. And then we put a bearing needle on the DME there.
If you really want a radio nav it, I'll get you a radio from Bury Head.
Okay, so let's just head directly towards the Newquay NDB then for now.
Yep. Well, I mean, you do it and then pick your DME up, and we're all good. But that's what you meant to do anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. Now I just got slightly confused looking at the looking at Exmoor on there and wondering why I couldn't pick anything up from there. What's the weather in Newquay? Can we get the weather on here, I wonder? Info. Weather. There we go. Hey, look at that. Awesome. So, winds 210 at 9. Visibility is all the 9s. It's 1500 foot broken. Temperatures +9. Dew points +8. QNH 1032. I mean, 30.47. So. Put that on the standby now. In fact, we can put it on all of them. That's interesting. 30.33 then, because apparently it won't do 32. So there you go, so we've got the weather.
As usual, there's low cloud.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice.
Could be sunny as anything in Newquay, and in game it will be low cloud, guaranteed. $175 for the ILS.
Yeah, I already got that one tuned in. It's auto-tuned box 2 to it as well, which is handy.
Unfortunately, there's not much radio nav down here.
It's not much anything down here, is there?
No, I mean there's no waypoints in Cornwall anymore. Full stop.
Back end of beyond. What are those lights I'm seeing in front of me?
That's
Are they
possibly me, I think, because I'm in a cave.
I mean,
so.
I mean on the ground. I'm just trying to work out what I'm seeing. I guess the nearest town is what? Exeter, just to the left?
Oh, that's a long way to the left.
Probably not going to be seeing that, am I? I'm probably just looking at road lights at the moment.
You might see the M5, I guess.
Barnstable, maybe? Yes, out there
Exeter
somewhere.
in the distance, perhaps.
Exeter, yeah, Exeter's a long way out there, but I don't think I'm high enough to really see it. Oh, I can see your lights now.
Barnstable will be it's about 2 o'clock or so.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
It's not very big. So.
No, I can't see it. Just looking at the VFR chart on Navigraph, which is actually pretty good. So we can go back to CDI now, can't we? So give ourselves a bit of an intercept. 30 knot headwind, lovely. Oh dear.
Oh
We'll have to
God,
make
it
this
is
one the
a
last
headwind.
one of the night, I think.
Yeah,
It's
I
going to be a long one.
That really is a headwind.
Is there a way to find out MOCA or AMA in the Garmin? I'm not a pilot. Okay. Minimum obstacle clearance at altitude, I'm guessing you mean by that. There is. I don't know if it's going to do it, but I can try and show you. So if we go back to the map, in fact it's not map, is it? It's AUX. We want auxiliary if it'll let us go to that. And then there we go. Now will it let us change that field? Right, so we have to change one of these. So we don't need desired track. We'll keep current track, but we'll get... Well, in fact, do we need desired track? Well, we'll keep desired track. We'll get rid of current track because we've got it on the purple diamond over there. So we'll get rid of this, and we should be able to change this to MSA. On-road, on board, glide slope, ISA, landing, TAS, vertical speed required, cross track. Sorry, Mr. Working Title, I don't think has implemented it just yet. It's A.
I asked this a few weeks ago, I remember.
Did you? ISA, landing, TAS.
We had a look, but we couldn't find MSA.
Yeah, it's not on there. So normally what you do is you can change one of these values at the top of the MFD here to give you a live MSA, minimum safe altitude update, which is really, really useful actually. And I always used to set the G1000 up in our aircraft with the MSA figure up there, because you'd always be wanting to know what the MSA was, especially going into a descent, going from standard onto QNH. You'd want to be checking the MSA as you descended. So yeah, that's where you would do it on the real aeroplane, but at the moment the working title G1000 can't do it. So watch this space basically, because hopefully they're going to be bringing more and more features to this as time goes on. But yeah, there you go. That's how you're going to be able to do it at some point, hopefully. Right, how are we looking? We've still got about 13 gallons of fuel on board, about 12, 13 gallons of fuel. So, in fact, if we go to here, it should give us an actual figure. Yeah, we've got 24 gallons of fuel, 12 per side. Beautiful. So that's easily 2 hours of fuel. It's a fairly efficient power setting. And well, it's more, well, 9 aside, so we're burning a little bit more at the moment. We're burning 18 gallons now, so let's call it an hour and a half at this power setting, but we could easily bring the power back and fly to a more efficient setting if we needed to conserve fuel, which we don't, because the weather in Newquay, we've already checked it, it's good. There's nothing that should prevent us making a successful approach into there apart from the airfield closing, and if it does close, then we've got Exeter not that far away that we can use as an alternate, so pretty confident that we are going to make it into Newquay. No problem. Miso.
More than Cold Rose if you really want.
Yeah, could go to Cold Rose. Yeah, so there's plenty of options around us. So I'm pretty happy that we don't need that much reserve fuel, but we've got it if we need it. In terms of the approach, so let's have another look at the approach chart for this. So let's make use of that lovely. Let's go back here. Get a waypoint. So we've got the ILS DME or NDB localized DME from 30. So we're going to be doing this DME arc procedure from up here. We're on this track from Exmoor to this point here, 14.5 miles off the ILS, which is called the India November Whiskey Kilo. So we've got to descend to 3,500 feet for this one. And when we hit the 12 DME arc, we're going to fly the DME arc all the way around until we pick up the inbound for the localizer and fly it all the way down. It's plate 11-2, effective 15th of July 21. Frequency is 110.5, that's in both the boxes. Final approach course is 302, that should be automatic. Glide slope integrity check at 6.5 miles, should be at 2,500 feet. And we've got a decision altitude of 585. I think that's already in the box. Let's just make sure, yeah, 590, because we can't do half tens with this system. So that's in the box, ready to go. The missed approach is going to be 2.5 straight ahead, or 1,500, whichever is initially climb straight ahead to 3 DME, or 1,500, whichever is later. So in this aircraft, that should be later. So we're looking for 3 miles. Then a right turn back to the locator at 2.5 to hold. So we've got the overlay loaded. So if we go to flight plan, we should see, in fact it's not active yet, so we may not see it. Oh no, there we go. So we can see the missed approach procedure in here. So what we'll do is we'll just, if we do have to go around, we will select LNAV or nav mode, and we'll just follow the purple line round because it's the easiest thing to do, and it's last flight of the night. It's 11 PM. We're all getting a little bit tired, so we don't want to make things artificially difficult for ourselves. Let's go back to the charts. So in terms of the approach itself, it's a fairly straightforward one. It's a 3-degree glide slope. We've got high intensity approach lighting system 2, so the runway should be lit up quite nicely. We've got a PAPI on the left hand side, and assuming everything goes right and we land, let's have a look. Can we get a taxi chart on here, I wonder? Info. There we go.
Turn off to the right from this direction.
Okay, so we're going to be landing 30, and we should be, it's a long old runway, it's almost 3 kilometres. We should be well and truly stopped by the Charlie intersection there, so we'll come off on Charlie, park somewhere around here, tea and cakes and medals, all the rest of it, and all the rest of that kind of stuff. If there's any kind of emergency or anything like that, the MSA is 3,000 feet. We're just going to go straight ahead, 3,000 feet over the sea, and then come back to hold at the November Kilo Yankee while we work any kind of problem out. And that's it. That's your briefing for free. Don't even charge for that.
Glide slope integrity check.
Yes.
That's just basically, am I on the glide slope? Doesn't look
It's
right.
basically, it's 2 things. Is the glide slope working properly? So I should be at this altitude, at this DME distance, and on the glide slope. And if one of those things isn't right, if you're on the glide slope but the altitude's completely different at that DME, then it's one of two things. Either the glide slope's busted, or you've got the wrong QNH set on your altimeter. So it's just a little check to make sure something wonky isn't happening. Because of course the big threat on an ILS is picking up a side lobe for the glide slope.
Yep.
So a little bit complicated. So I'm not going to bore everyone in chat talking about how ILSs work, but suffice to say there's a fake glide slope at 9 degrees. So assuming it's a 3-degree glide slope, you get a 9-degree slope above it, which is why almost always you will intercept a glide path from below, not from above. Now, that said, more sophisticated aeroplanes can pick up glide slopes from above, so long as you can pass the glide slope integrity check. So in the 737 we quite often do it because we're coming stonking in trying to do one of these CDA continuous descent approaches. So we'll come speeding in and we'll sort of line up with the localizer and then catch the glide slope up and then pick it up. But it's very important that you complete your glide slope integrity check to make sure you haven't accidentally picked up a side lobe. But yeah, the more sophisticated, the heavy airplanes can do that sort of thing. A light aircraft I would not want to be doing that with.
Well, if you've missed the glide slope by so much you're going to pick up a 9-degree in a light aircraft, then
Yeah. You're in a bit of trouble, aren't you?
Very long, very wrong indeed.
Yeah.
I have DME 28 miles.
Oh, I'm still 41 out.
Yeah, I went ahead, so I didn't force you into another missed approach. So.
That's nice of you. So, DME arc. Everyone's scared to death of them. In reality, they're pretty easy to fly. You just wait until your DME is reading the DME what it says on the chart. So in this case, was it 12 miles?
Yeah.
And
well, you need what, a mile to turn.
Yeah, so it says here you start the procedure from 14.5. So you sort of start your turn around at 14.5. The key is to stay inside of 12 miles. You don't want to be outside of it. So you want to be between 11 and 12. The minute you're about to go outside of 12 miles, then you turn about 30 degrees towards the beacon, and you kind of fly it like a 50 pence piece. Or 50 pence piece isn't going to mean a great deal of to a lot of people, is it?
Like an octagon.
Like a shape with lots and lots of little sides. So instead of flying a smooth curve, it's like lots of little straight lines, and you just kind of make lots of little jaggedy straight lines until you pick up the until the localizer starts moving, basically, and then you just fly and intercept to the localizer like you normally would do. So people like to make a lot more of it than what it actually is. It's actually fairly straightforward to fly.
Or if you've got an NDB there, you park the NDB at 90 degrees. And
yeah, that's how you start off, isn't it? You park your NDB at 90 degrees, and then you just read the distance and then take it from there. So there you go, expert explanation of a DME arc. When would you do them? Almost never would be my answer.
Well, we're doing the approach we're doing is an actual approach. So, I mean, I don't know. Would you get vectors all the way out here?
Yeah, you'd just get picked up on radar. You get vectored out of here. So you'd only do a DME arc when radar wasn't working. So if you're procedural, that is, you're getting a procedural service, so they've got no radar trace on you. The only way that they know where you are is when you report in at different points. So that makes things a lot more complicated, because you can't just take instructions from air traffic control telling you to route towards an intercept for the ILS localizer. So in that sort of case, then you have to sort of do set little procedures like DME arcs or like procedural approaches, where you have to usually kind of join the hold, go once around the hold, and then go outbound down a certain track, and then turn back onto the localizer, blah, 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 blah. So the DME arc is basically a slightly more efficient version of doing that. Instead of doing the procedural approach, you're going to fly the arc onto the approach. And it's just in lieu of being able to pick up radar vectors. In reality, what you'd probably do if radar was down and it was available, you'd fly an RMP, because you can just self-position onto an RMP onto the GPS waypoints, and Bob's your uncle, as they'd say in the UK. Makes things very, very easy if your aircraft, of course, is equipped for it. Now, funny fact, a lot of the 737s that I fly aren't equipped for it because they don't actually have GPS. They're so old that their navigation systems are reliant on the inertial reference system, inertial nav, and radio updating. So you have nav radios to update the position of your inertial nav system. So for those aeroplanes, you can't fly RNAV approaches. So if the ILS is down, then your next best option is an NDB usually, which is a barrel of laughs, to fly in an airliner.
And I should point out, because this has come up recently, that in real life you do not get RMI for an ILS.
Yeah, so something that Rich noticed recently is your relative magnetic indicator, so your bearing needles in Microsoft Flight Simulator, will point at an ILS if you want it to. In real life you don't get that because you don't get a signal from an ILS. Yeah, it's not an omnidirectional beacon, so they can only pick up signals from omnidirectional nav aids like VORs or NDBs, TACAN, anything like that. For an ILS, it just doesn't work. So in real life, you'd just get the DME, but your bearing needle would just sort of point to a null point. So on a 737, they point at the right and left wingtips, respectively, to indicate that they're not getting a valid signal.
For added fun with this arc, you meant to drop 1,000 feet.
Oh, as you're going around the arc? Cool. Yeah, you go from... okay, so when you pass the 278 radial, you go down to 2,500 feet, don't you? That's exciting. Oh, I'm getting a DME. Cool, right. Let's go down to 3.5 then. Ready for starting the procedure. So, flight level change. Pull the throttles back a little bit. Nice little cruise descent. So the magic figure is going to be 14.5, and that's when we're going to start thinking about turning to get this blue bearing needle here. Now I'm cheating because I'm using a GPS bearing needle, although in Microsoft Flight Simulator there's not a huge difference. Or I mean, in real life, if you've got a good setup, if you've got a good kit on your aeroplane, then NDBs are sort of reliable. They're all right. In the 737, the ADF needle is actually pretty nice. It's pretty good. It doesn't dip. It picks up a good signal. You can pretty much trust it. In a Diamond aircraft, I think Diamond, when they set up an ADF, they were like, well, nobody's actually going to use this. So they didn't really bother to put the receiver in a part of the airplane which isn't affected by other parts of the airplane. So when you go to turn, what will happen is the head of the needle, the arrow point of the needle, will drop towards the low wing by about 10 degrees, which doesn't sound dramatic, but wait until you're trying to do something accurate and accurately track a needle. The bearing needle will wave around all over the place and make it really, really difficult. It's overall a very easy airplane to fly, but that's one of the most difficult things about flying this airplane and flying raw data navigation. Now, of course, in real life, why would you use the bloody NDB? You know, why would you be using an ADF when you've got the GPS stuff available? You just point the bearing needle at a GPS waypoint instead, which is eminently sensible. But unfortunately, on the instrument rating skills test, you aren't allowed to do that because you have to use raw data. So, hence why I've got lots of experience staring at the ADF needles on DA-42s. Can see you're having fun with the Arc now at the moment, Rich. Can still see you on my
Yes.
TCAS. Well, I say TCAS. It's not TCAS, is it? It's TAS, Traffic Alert System. So the important thing is it doesn't give you a resolution advisory. It will just alert you about traffic. It won't tell you to climb or descend or anything like that. So everyone sort of ubiquitously refers to anything that shows traffic as TCAS, but technically it isn't in a light aircraft, or in most light aircraft. I don't know any of them that have got real TCAS systems. Maybe the turboprops and stuff.
Interesting. VS didn't want to work.
It's fine, you don't need that.
No, I just pushed the descent button and it's trying to crash me into this car now.
Nice. So for reference, we're now we started off in the north of England. We're now almost as far south as you can get.
Pretty much, apart from the Channel Islands.
Yeah. You can see, if I zoom the map out far enough, you can see we're right the way down here, and we started off right the way up here when we were in the Tiger Moth. Okay, couple of miles left to go. So I'm going to sink the heading bug one last time, and then I'm going to throw the CDI onto green needles, ready for intercepting our localizer, and we're just going to rely on the purple bearing needle there to show us the position of the NDB. Now, given that this procedure is probably going to be set up with much faster aeroplanes than us in mind, probably going to wait a little bit after we pass 14.5, which is coming up just any second now. So I'm going to wait a little bit. Otherwise, we're going to be well outside of 12 miles by the time I make this turn. Plus, we got a massive headwind smashing us along, so that's going to have an effect. It's going to push the turn. Yeah, it's going to push the turn very tight, so always got to consider that.
Right. On the glide slope.
Godspeed, good luck. We're all counting on you.
What's the most approach?
Straight ahead to 3D or 1500, whichever is later, so it's going to be 3 for you.
Oh, it's 2,500 feet though, yeah. Fair enough.
Go on, heading mode.
I was already set at 2,500 anyway.
So what I'm aiming to do now is just put this blue needle 90 degrees off the side of the aircraft. As a 737 pilot, have you ever flown over Slovakia? No, I haven't. I would love to fly over Slovakia or anywhere in Europe, really, but my company at the moment does a lot of UK internal cargo runs, so I'm very boring, and I fly a lot over Scotland and Ireland and England, and not much else, really. We do charters, though, so we do come to Europe now and again, so hopefully one day I'll see Slovakia and all sorts of other cool places.
Did you go anywhere exciting with the purple lot?
No. I mean, Germany was about as far as we got. There was a few, once or twice, when the jets broke, one would go to Tenerife, which was mental at 25,000 feet in the Dash 8, but other than that, that's... Oh, no, if you talk to Jimbo, he did a few Austria trips in the summer, or in ski season. There used to be trips to Austria,
Right.
so that was quite a cool one.
Fair warning, if you have the add-on Newquay, then the package is wrong.
I do not have the add-on Newquay.
Fair enough.
We're about to find out what default Newquay looks like.
I'm now under the glide slope and it's still got 3 bikes.
Exciting.
Oh boy, this is bumpy.
Okay, so you can see I'm about to go up to 12 miles. So as we get to that, or just before we get to that, I'm going to come about 25, 30 degrees right. It's about there. We're looking for what, 278 radial. So that's about there. So when the blue needle is pointing about there, we need to descend to 2,500 feet. Let's do our approach checklist first of all. So aids and ATIS, set, checked, I'd entered. ATIS, so let's assume we've got that. Briefing is complete. Checklist, brakes pressurized, undercarriage defer, mixer don't have, fuel's on, sufficient imbalance, flaps defer, instruments are all in the green, carb heat we don't have, hatches and harnesses all secured, landing light coming on. That's that done. Oh, that's 12 miles, better start turning again.
Runway indicators, you appear to be number 1 now.
Beautiful. I'm going to wind down the altitude to 2.5 in anticipation of hitting that radial.
Ride down low.
And hitting it. Now going to flight level change, pull the power back. 1 to go. And we're turning it again because that's 12 miles. We're going a little bit quick at the moment, so you'd probably be already down about 120 knots flying this arc, but we're being a bit sporty. And we're almost set up. I mean, from here we can pretty much fly a nice little intercept to the localizer. We're inside of 90 degrees, so we can arm the approach. Or rather, we'll arm nav. We'll wait until we capture the localizer before we arm the approach. There's 2.5 leveled off. I'm leaving the throttles back at 46% to allow us to start slowing down now. Okay, I'm going to activate our GPS vectors to final as well. So we've got the GPS overlay for the in fact, I don't want to be this close. I'm a little bit too close now. Where's top of drop? No, top of drop 6.5. Got loads of space. A little bit closer than I want to be. I'm sort of pinching in a little bit at the end of the arc. A little bit eager to intercept that localizer. I think we'll be all right.
That's a good long run in there, so...
Yeah, it's 6 miles, 6.5 miles top of drop, isn't it? So 9.5 miles, so it's plenty, I think. Afford ourselves a little look outside. See the runway lights just over there? There we go. Loke's alive. Sink the heading bug. Inside a half scale. On the approach.
Vertical track.
Glide's alive. See how well it holds us on the glide path. Pretty well. Quite a lot of crosswinds. 21 across, 9 ahead. So we can do a much more sort of light aircraft style profile. Last time we had a continuous descent approach, which is very efficient and airliney, but it's not usually what you'd do in a light aircraft. So you'd usually wait until you've got about half scale deflection, so 1 dot above, and start to configure the aircraft. So speed below 194, gear select down, below 136, flap select take off. And the speed should start winding back nicely for you by the time you intercept the glide slope. Like I said, slippy aeroplane, the 62 and the 42. So missed approach altitude, let's get it in this time. It's 2,500 feet, so no change required on that. Let's assume we're clear to land, so taxi light can come on. Get it stable at 100 knots, and then I'll get the autopilot off and hopefully not crash. Now normally what you'd do is you'd maintain this configuration, so take off flap, gear down, 100 knots until you are visual. Now obviously we're visual now, but we're still 5 miles out, so if we slow down to our approach speed of about 85 knots now, then we're going to be pretty slow all the way down final approach. So
we're
going to be here all night. So I'm just waiting until we're a little bit closer. We're going to close to about 3 miles before we go to our final configuration. In the big aeroplane, in the 7.3, we usually say about 4 miles is the absolute latest you want to be taking your approach configuration flap. We always have a hard limit of we have to be geared down at the very least by 1,500 feet above ground level. But obviously you're going a lot faster in a 737, so you kind of have to do things a little bit earlier.
Oh, what's the point? It's a lot harder to slow down, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. Although once you've got flaps and gear in and stuff, it's, you know, it's not too difficult. If you're heavy and you're, you know, at higher altitude, that's when it's tricky. The NG is a bit more tricky as well. Right, manual flight. The flight directors in this is pretty good, but I'm not used to that style of flight director.
I think you can change it, can't you?
Can you?
It's probably not the time to
No,
change
definitely
it,
not the time to be playing around with that, is it? Short final. I mean, I shouldn't be looking inside at this point. I should be looking outside. So, bad technique.
Cross-check, I guess, given it's dark.
It's always a tendency to get a bit ground shy in the dark. So you've always got to try to push through your natural tendency to think you're further away from the ground than you actually are. Hence why I'm going high at the moment.
500.
Right, let's get that last stage of flaps in. Get the speed off. Oh, this is rough. Bloody hell.
It is, isn't it?
Whew. Come on, centre line. It's there somewhere. So it's only 10 from the left, but a lot of turbulence. Bloody hell. My word. Oh, come on.
Oh boy.
That's nowhere near the centre line, but
go
it's
around.
close enough.
Okay, that's a go off the runway then.
Oh, there we go. It's fine. That's a touchdown marker.
Ladies and gentlemen, your professional pilot.
It's fine. It would have been a go around at a 737, but in a DA62, no problem.
You did definitely look like you went off the left side of the runway though.
No, it bloody didn't. Check
It's
the
dark,
VOD.
nobody's gonna
Check
see.
the VOD. Nowhere
It's
near.
dark, no one's gonna see.
Right, runway vacated. Let's get rid of the landing lights and the strobes and the pitot heater. Get the flaps up. Right, where am I parking here? I've got no idea where I am.
Just turn your labels on and park next to me, I guess.
Oh, hang on.
I have
Right,
a tunnel
I
in
see.
front of me, so yeah. There's probably some random default building there, but technically it's the airport.
A bit bumpy, yeah. Yeah, you could say that again. Getting some absolutely mega turbulence on that approach. So we definitely earned our virtual pilot pay. Few companies actually use these commercially, mostly as survey aircraft and.
Well, ironically, given what you were saying about RadioNav earlier, there's two of them that are used for calibrating VORs
Yeah,
and ILS and stuff.
yeah. I think they've probably got more sensitive equipment in the back. They don't just use the default diamond stuff. One of my friends, former students, former colleagues, he went on to work with me at the flying school when he finished his training. He left us to go and work for a company that operates DA62s, and they do Coast Guard stuff out in the Med. So, very cool job. He spends most of his time in Lampedusa.
That's a nice job.
Not too bad. He's got a really nice suntan all the time. Every time I see him.
Yeah.
Right, there we go. Close enough. Parking brakes
That's
set.
a bit more fun than our Coast Guard fix.
Yeah, just a bit.
Flying a King Air up and down the channel all night. So.
Right, okay, so then shutdown checks, pretty straightforward. Normally you'd have to wait a couple of minutes to just allow the oil to cool down a little bit before you shut it down. But we're in a flight simulator, so I'm quite happy that the oil's not going to, the engines aren't going to kill themselves with heat soak.
You'll get bad habits.
Oh, yeah. Don't start. So the avionics are going to go off like that. And then the engine master switches can go off like that.
This is where you find he's put persistent damage in there and you actually have a rate before.
Oh, quite possibly, yeah. Yeah, well, we were taxiing below 10% power setting for 2 minutes, so that counts as well. And then whack the battery off and we're job done. There we go. I don't think this has got you can't add a opening canopy to this, can you? Because it's a default. So we don't have any canopies to open, I'm afraid. So we're just going to have to spend the night sat in the airplane. But for any of you guys who are still left watching after that, thank you very, very much for coming along. Still fairly new to all this streaming stuff. So thanks for sort of bearing with us and watch along and asking some great questions in chat. Hopefully it was informative. Hopefully you all learned something. I certainly learned something about streaming. So next time, next thing that's going to be out on the channel is probably going to be the review for the Piper M500. I'm just waiting for a day that I can pin Nathan down, who's my friend who flies is a King Air captain. So he knows a bit about PT6 engines, I should think. So he's going to help me out a little bit with that review.
Come on, Mr. Dash Pilot, you should know a bit too.
Well, yeah, maybe, but It's always nice to get some help with an aeroplane you've got
Yeah.
no idea what you're doing with. So yeah, so that'll be the next thing that comes up on the channel, and then possibly some more streams. The great thing about streams is they don't take a huge amount of planning, so they're good for me to sort of come home from a week's flying and just sort of jump into without having to record loads of stuff and do lots of editing and things like that. So probably see a few more streams. I might give the 737 a go next time and show you the sort of stuff that I do on a weekly basis. But any suggestions, please stick them in the comments. You can join our Discord and give us suggestions in there. More than happy to give pretty much anything a go on this channel. So don't feel shy or afraid to ask for anything. I'm more than happy to give anything a go. But yeah, so pretty much good night from me. It's good night from Rich, I suspect.
Yes, good night.
And yeah, cheers everyone. Take care.
See you some other time.